Hey guys, tonight we are leaving the comfort of the modern world and travelling north, far north, to a place where the sea is grey, the wind has teeth, and the sun is a rare and precious guest. We are going to step into the world of the Vikings, not the horned helmet warriors of Hollywood, but the farmers, sailors, and survivors who lived on the edge of the known world. We're going to explore the wet, cold, and smoky reality of life in the Viking Age. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world to drift off into the past. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Pull the blanket up. You are definitely going to want it for this one. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the year 793 AD. The good news? You're alive. The bad news? You're currently lying on a wooden deck that is pitching violently to the left. You're soaking wet, and you are hundreds of miles from the nearest dry land. You don't wake up because you are rested. You wake up because a wave just crashed over the side of the ship, spraying freezing salt water directly into your face. The water is shocking. It steals the breath from your lungs and leaves the taste of brine and iron on your lips. You sputter, wiping your eyes with a hand that is numb and clumsy from the cold. You're lying on a sheepskin rug that stopped being dry 3 days ago. It smells of wet wool, a heavy, earthy, animal scent that clings to everything on this ship. The deck beneath you is made of oak planks. You can feel the vibration of the ship as it cuts through the North Sea. It isn't a steady hum, it's a living, groaning rhythm. The wood creaks, protests, and shifts with every swell of the ocean. It is dark. Not the darkness of a bedroom with the shades drawn, but the absolute crushing darkness of the open ocean at night. There are no streetlights here, no glow from a distant city, just the heavy black clouds above and the churning black water below. The only light comes from the moon, which occasionally breaks through the storm clouds to illuminate the white caps of the waves that threaten to swallow you whole. You try to sit up, but your muscles protest. You're stiff. You have been sleeping, if you can call it that, curled into a ball to conserve body heat. You're sharing this small patch of deck with 2 other men. You can hear their breathing, ragged and shivering, over the roar of the wind. This is the reality of the Viking longship. There are no cabins below deck. There is no shelter. You sleep where you row, exposed to the elements, separated from the freezing abyss by only an inch of wood and a lot of luck. The wind is howling, it sounds like. A living thing tearing at the woolen sail that strains against the mast. Snap. Wah! Snap. The rigging sings a high-pitched song of tension. You pull your cloak tighter around you. It is made of thick, coarse wool, dyed a dull brown with walnut shells. It scratches your neck, but right now that scratchiness is the only thing keeping you from hypothermia. The wool still holds the lanolin from the sheep, which makes it somewhat water-resistant, but resistant is a relative term when you are living inside a storm. You look toward the stern of the ship. You can just make out the silhouette of the steersman. He's standing at the steering oar, a massive piece of timber that controls the destiny of 30 men. He looks like a statue carved from granite, unmoving, eyes fixed on the horizon, reading the waves like a book. He doesn't look cold. He looks part of the storm. You realize you need to move. If you stay still, the cold will settle into your bones and never leave. You stand up, your sea legs adjusting instantly to the rolling deck. The motion is constant. Up, down, tilt, roll. It is a nauseating dance that your inner ear hates, but your body has accepted as the new normal. You stumble toward the water barrel. Your throat is parched. It's a strange irony of the sea, surrounded by water yet constantly thirsty. You dip a ladle into the barrel. The water is stale. It tastes of wood and algae. It has been sitting in this barrel for 2 weeks, but you drink it anyway. It is cold and feels heavy in your stomach. Next to the water barrel is the food chest. You open it. Inside there is stockfish, cod that has been dried in the wind until it is as hard as a plank of wood. To eat it, you have to beat it with a hammer or chew it for an hour until your saliva softens it. It smells pungent, fishy, and sharp. There is also hardtack, flatbread that is so dry it could be used as a roofing tile. This is your diet. Cold fish and hard bread. No hot meals, no fire. Lighting a fire on a wooden ship covered in tar and pitch is a recipe for disaster, so you eat cold calories to keep your internal furnace burning. You take a piece of the dried fish. You gnaw on it. It is salty and tough, resisting your teeth. As you chew, you look out over the gunwale, the side of the ship. The ocean is terrifyingly close. The freeboard, the distance between the water and the edge of the ship, is only about 2 feet. If you lean over too far, you could touch the waves. If the ship rolls too hard, the ocean comes to visit you. You are sailing in a drakkar, a dragon ship. It is a masterpiece of engineering. It is shallow drafted, meaning it can sail up rivers and land on beaches. It is flexible, bending with the waves rather than breaking against them. But it offers zero comfort. It is a tool of war and exploration, not a cruise liner. You see the other men starting to stir. It is almost dawn. The sky to the east is turning a bruised purple. The wind is shifting. The captain, a man with a beard that looks like a bird's nest and eyes like chips of flint, shouts an order. "Oars!" The sail is coming down. The wind is against you now. You have to row. You move to your sea chest. This wooden box holds everything you own. A spare tunic, a whetstone, maybe a small pouch of hack silver pieces. But right now, it is your seat. You sit down. You grab the oar handle. It is thick, polished smooth by the sweat and calluses of the men who rowed before you. It is heavy. You slide the oar through the oar port. You feel the resistance of the water. Pull. You pull. Your back muscles scream. Your shoulders burn. The ship surges forward. Creak. Splash. Grunt. This is the rhythm of your life. You're a Viking. You're not a king. You're a rower. You're an engine made of meat and bone, powered by dried fish, driving this wooden shell across a hostile world. The sun breaks the horizon, casting a cold, pale light over the grey water. It offers no warmth, only visibility. You can see the white breath of the man in front of you. You can see the salt crystals drying on your own sleeves. You row, you endure, you survive. And somewhere, over the edge of the world, there is land. There is fire. There is a hot meal. But for now, there is only the oar, the sea, and the cold. You row. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Dip, pull, lift, dip, pull, lift. Your mind drifts away from the pain in your shoulders and the cold water sloshing around your ankles. You enter a trance state where only the movement exists. Hours pass. The sun climbs higher, but it is a weak northern sun that barely warms your back. The spray continues to mist over the gunwale, leaving a crust of salt on your skin. Your lips are chapped and taste of the ocean. Suddenly the steersman shouts, "Land!" You look up, breaking the rhythm. On the horizon, a dark smudge breaks the endless grey line of the sea. It grows larger, sharper, cliffs, green hills, smoke rising from a settlement. This is Northumbria. England. To you, it isn't a kingdom. It is a resource. The ship turns toward the shore. The water changes colour from deep blue to a churned-up sandy brown. The sound of the waves changes from a roar to a crash as they hit the beach. Oars in. You pull your oar inside the ship and stow it. You grab your shield from the side of the hull. It's painted red and white, made of linden wood, light but strong. You check your axe. The iron head is cold, the wooden handle familiar in your grip. The ship grounds on the shingle. Crunch. The sudden stop throws you forward. You jump over the side. The water is waist-deep and freezing. It shocks your system, waking you up completely. You wade toward the shore, the stones shifting under your boots. You are not alone. 2 other ships have landed beside you. 100 men are moving up the beach. They are not screaming like berserkers in a saga. They are quiet, focused, professional. This is a raid, not a brawl. The goal is speed and surprise. You reach the dry sand. The smell of the land hits you. Wet grass, wood smoke, livestock. It is overwhelming after days of nothing but salt air. You move inland. You pass a small fishing hut. It is empty. The people have seen the ships and fled. Smart. You reach a monastery. It is a stone building surrounded by a low wall. This is the target. Monasteries are perfect. They have silver, gold, fine cloth, and wine, and they are guarded by men who have sworn oaths of non-violence. It is, frankly, poor tactical planning on their part. You breach the gate. There is shouting now. Monks are running. You see a man in brown robes clutching a heavy book. To you, the book is worthless. You can't read the Latin and parchment is just skin. But the gold cover, that has value. You don't hurt him. You just take the book. You're here for loot, not murder, unless they fight back. Most don't. Inside the church it is dim and smells of beeswax and incense. It is warm. You pause for a second, enjoying the lack of wind. You see a silver chalice on the altar. You grab it. It is heavy. Good silver. This will buy a lot of grain back home. The raid is over in an hour. You and your shipmates carry the goods back to the beach. Bales of wool, casks of wine, a few terrified chickens. You load the ship. You push it back into the surf. You climb aboard. As you row away, you look back. The monastery is untouched by fire. Burning it would be a waste of time and might alert the local king's soldiers. You just took the portable wealth. You are tired. You are wet. But you are richer than you were this morning. The ship turns north again. You're not staying. Vikings are raiders, not conquerors, at least not yet. You're going home. Home is a fjord in Norway. It takes 3 days to get there. 3 more days of cold food, wet clothes, and sleeping on the deck. But when you finally sail into the calm water of the fjord, the relief is physical. The mountains rise up on either side, shielding you from the wind. You smell pine trees and snow. You beach the ship near your farm. Your wife is waiting. She doesn't look like a damsel in distress. She looks like a woman who has been running a farm single-handedly for 3 months. She's wearing a linen apron over a wool dress, a key hanging from her belt. That key symbolizes her power. She controls the food, the locked chests, the household. You're back, she says. Did you bring anything useful? Silver, you say. And wine. Good, she nods. The roof needs fixing and we need a new cow. You walk into your longhouse. Let's talk about the longhouse. It is the centre of your world. It is a massive single-room building, maybe 50 feet long, with a curved roof that makes it look like an overturned boat. The walls are made of timber, wattle and daub, woven branches covered in mud and straw. The roof is thatched with turf. Grass grows on top of your house. Goats sometimes graze on your roof. It is excellent insulation. You step inside. The air is thick with smoke. There is no chimney, just a hole in the roof. The smoke from the central hearth drifts up and hangs in the rafters, curing the meat hanging there and stinging your eyes. You cough. You're used to the smoke line. If you stand up, you breathe smoke. If you sit down, you breathe air. So everyone sits. The floor is packed earth. It is covered in rushes, dried plants. In the corners it is dark, but it is warm. The fire in the centre is the heart of the house. It never goes out. You sit on a bench covered in furs. You take off your wet boots. Your feet are white and wrinkled from the sea. Your wife brings you a bowl of stew. It isn't the cold rations of the ship. It is hot. It smells of meat, onions and herbs. You eat it with a wooden spoon. It is the best thing you have ever tasted. You look around. The longhouse is shared. At the far end, beyond a low partition, the animals live. The cows are in the byre. You can hear them shifting and chewing. You can smell them. The scent of manure mixes with the wood smoke and the cooking food. To a modern nose, it would be overpowering. To you, it smells like safety. The animals provide heat. They are living radiators. You are home. You survived the sea. You survived the raid. You have silver in your pouch and hot food in your belly. You lean back against the wall. The timber frame creaks in the wind, just like the ship did. But this wood isn't moving. You close your eyes. For the first time in weeks, you sleep without listening for the waves. Let's leave the warmth of the longhouse for a moment and step into the most misunderstood place in the Viking world, the court of law. You might think Vikings settle disputes with axes. Sometimes they do, but more often they settle them with words. They love law. In fact, the English word law comes from the Old Norse lag. You are at the thing, the assembly. It is an open-air meeting held on a hill or a field. All the free men of the district are here. They are armed, because they are free men, and that is their right, but the peace of the thing is sacred. No fighting allowed. You're watching a legal case. A man is accused of stealing a sheep. There is no judge in a wig. There is a law seeker, a man who has memorized the entire law code because it isn't written down yet. He recites it from memory. If a man steals a sheep, he must pay double its value. The jury listens. Yes, a jury. Vikings invented the jury of peers. 12 men decide if the accused is guilty. If he is guilty, he pays a fine. Vikings hate prison. Why feed a criminal? Make him pay. If he can't pay, he becomes an outlaw. Being an outlaw is the worst fate imaginable. It means you lose all legal protection. Anyone can kill you without penalty. You are Wolf's Head. No longer human in the eyes of the law, you have to flee into the mountains and live like an animal. But today, the man pays. He hands over silver rings. The dispute is settled. The thing continues. It is democracy, Viking style, rough, loud, and armed, but functional. Now, let's go to a place that is even more important than the thing, the smithy. You hear the clang, clang, clang of the hammer. The blacksmith is the magician of the village. He turns bog iron, rusty lumps dug out of the swamp, into steel. You watch him make a sword. This isn't just a weapon. It is a treasure. A good sword is worth 16 cows. It is given a name. Leg biter. Battle flame. He pattern welds the blade. He twists rods of iron and steel together, then hammers them flat. The result is a blade with a swirling pattern like flowing water. It is beautiful and incredibly strong. He quenches it in oil. Hiss. Smoke rises. You realize that the Viking Age is built on iron. Iron nails hold the ships together. Iron axes clear the forest. Iron ploughs turn the earth. The blacksmith is more important than the king. But iron is expensive. Most men fight with a spear or an axe. The axe is a tool first, a weapon second. It is the symbol of the Viking, practical, brutal, and effective. You leave the smithy. The air is cold. Winter is coming. Winter. The Viking winter is not a season. It is a siege. The sun barely rises. The snow piles up to the roof. You are trapped inside the longhouse with your family, your cows, and your thoughts. This is the time for stories, the time for sagas. You sit by the fire. An old man starts to speak. There was a man named Egil. He tells of heroes who fought dragons, gods who tricked giants, and voyages to the edge of the world. The stories aren't just entertainment. They are history. They are education. They tell you who you are. You learn that honor is everything, that fate is woven by the Norns and cannot be changed, that death is inevitable, but your reputation lives forever. Cattle die, kinsmen die, you yourself shall, you, die. But I know one thing that never dies, the fame of a dead man's deeds. You listen. The wind howls outside, the fire crackles. You are part of a long line of survivors. Let's step out of the longhouse into the biting cold of a Scandinavian winter night. The snow is knee-deep, sparkling under the aurora borealis, the northern lights. The sky is a shifting curtain of green and purple fire. You believe these are the spirits of the dead, or perhaps the bridge to Asgard, the Bifrost. You are heading to the barn. Your cows need you. Inside the barn, it is warm and smells of hay and manure. The animals are your wealth. If they die, you starve. You check them carefully. You talk to them. In the lonely winter, your cow is your best friend. But there is something else here. The Nisa, the barn elf. You don't see him, but you know he is here. He is small, has a beard, and wears a red hat. He protects the farm, but he is easily offended if you don't treat the animals well, or if you forget to leave him a bowl of porridge with butter on Christmas Eve. He will tie the cows' tails together or break your tools. You leave the porridge on a beam. For the Nisa, you whisper. It is a small bribe for supernatural protection. You walk back to the house. The cold is intense. Your breath freezes on your beard. You look at the forest. It is dark and silent. You know there are trolls in there, not the cute dolls with colourful hair. Norse trolls are massive stone-skinned monsters who eat people. Or Huldra, beautiful women with hollow backs and cowtails who lure men into the woods to disappear forever. The Viking world is full of monsters. The sea has the kraken. The mountains have giants. The burial mounds have draugr, undead warriors who guard their treasure with superhuman strength. This isn't superstition. It is geography. When you live in a landscape of towering mountains, deep fjords, and endless nights, it is easy to believe that the earth is alive and watching you. You enter the longhouse. The warmth hits you. Your wife is spinning wool. The spindle whirls. Wah! Wah! Spinning is the constant background noise of Viking life. It takes miles of thread to make a tunic, let alone a sail. A Viking sail is a masterpiece of textile engineering. It is made of wool, woven tight, and treated with horse fat and ochre to make it waterproof. It takes 2 women a year to make one sail. Without women spinning, the ships don't sail. Without the ships, there are no Vikings. The distaff and the spindle are just as powerful as the sword and the axe. You sit down, you take out a piece of wood and a knife, you start to carve a spoon, a toy for your child, a dragon head for a ship. Viking art is intricate, gripping beasts, interlacing knots. Why? Because they hate empty space. Horror vacui. They fill every inch of wood, metal, and stone with patterns. It is a way of imposing order on a chaotic world. You carve, the fire pops. The Nissa eats his porridge in the barn. The trolls watch from the forest. The world is dangerous, but for tonight, the balance holds. Let's leave the farm and the forest for a moment and step into the most cosmopolitan place in the Viking world, the trade town. Places like Hedeby, Birka, or Kaupang. You might think Vikings just steal. Wrong. They trade more than they raid. You walk into the market. It is a sensory explosion. You hear languages you don't understand. Arabic, Frankish, Slavic, Old English. You see a merchant from Baghdad. He's selling silver dirhams, coins. Vikings love silver. They don't use coins as currency. They weigh them. Hack silver. If something costs half a coin, you chop the coin in half with an axe. You see silk from Byzantium, glass beads from Italy, amber from the Baltic, walrus ivory from Greenland. You realize that the Vikings are the FedEx of the Dark Ages. They connect the world. A Viking might wear a silk hat from Constantinople, spend silver from Iraq, and own a slave from Ireland. You stop at a stall selling combs. Vikings are obsessed with grooming. They bathe once a week. Saturday, Lugadaga, washing day. This is frequent by medieval standards. English chroniclers complain that Vikings steal English women because they are too clean and smell too good. They comb their hair every day. They use ear spoons to clean their ears. They tweezers. You buy a comb made of antler. It is carved with runes. Thor owns this comb. It is a possession marker. You see a woman bargaining for a slave. Thralls. The dark side of the Viking economy. Slavery is everywhere. A thrall has no rights. They are property. They do the hardest work. Grinding grain, digging ditches. It is brutal. It is the engine that allows the free men to go sailing. You walk away from the slave market. It makes you uncomfortable. Or maybe it doesn't. To you, it is just life. Fate. Some are born jarls. Some are born thralls. The Norns spin the thread. You just live it. You go to the tavern. You drink mead, honey wine. It is sweet and strong. You drink ale. You play Hannefertaffel, a board game like chess, but asymmetrical. One king surrounded by attackers. It teaches strategy. It teaches that the odds are always against you. A skald, a poet, stands up. He recites a poem. It is complex, full of kennings, word puzzles. He calls the sea the whale road. He calls blood sword sweat. He calls a ship the wave steed. You listen. You drink. You are part of a culture that values words as much as weapons. Let's leave the bustling trade town and head back to the sea, but not for a raid. We're going exploring. We're going west into the open ocean, where the maps end. You're on a ship headed for Iceland, or maybe Greenland, or even Vinland, North America. The journey is terrifying. You're sailing into the unknown. There are no landmarks. You release a raven. If it flies back, there is no land. If it flies forward, you follow it. Floki Vilgardarson used this trick. You reach Iceland. It is a land of fire and ice. Volcanoes erupt under glaciers. Geysers shoot boiling water into the air. It looks like the world is still being made. You settle there. You build a farm, but there are no trees. You have to use driftwood or import timber. You burn dried sheep dung for fuel. It smells distinct, but you are free. No king rules here. Iceland is a republic of farmers. You govern yourselves at the Althing. Life is hard. Famine is always one bad summer away, but you are stubborn. You write down the sagas. You preserve the history. Now let's go even further. Vinland, Lonso Meadows. You land on a new continent. The grass is green. There are wild grapes, salmon in the rivers, but you are not alone. Skraelings, the indigenous people. You trade with them. Red cloth for furs. But then a bull escapes from your pen. It bellows. The locals have never heard a bull. They are terrified. They attack. A battle ensues. You realize you're outnumbered. You are thousands of miles from support. You leave. You pack up your ship and sail back east. You touch the edge of a new world, but you couldn't hold it. It is a what-if of history. What if the Vikings had stayed? You're back on the ship, the waves rock you. You look at the stars. You're a tiny speck in a vast universe, but you're not afraid. You're a Viking. You sail where others fear to look. Let's leave the cold, grey Atlantic and step onto the sun-baked soil of the Mediterranean. Yes, Vikings went there too. They called it the Middle-earth. Not that one. You're a member of the Varangian Guard. You're in Constantinople, Miklagard, the great city. You're 6'2", blonde and carrying a massive axe. You're walking through the streets of the most sophisticated city on earth. You see domes covered in gold. You see mechanical birds singing in the emperor's palace. You see people eating with forks. You are the emperor's elite bodyguard. Why? Because you are loyal. The local Greeks are always plotting coups. But you? You don't care about their politics. You care about the gold. If the emperor pays, you chop heads. You are well paid. You sleep on silk. You drink wine mixed with resin. You carve your name into the marble of the Hagia Sophia. Halfdan was here. It is still there today, a 1,000-year-old graffiti tag. You fight for the emperor. You fight Arabs in Syria. You fight Bulgars in the Balkans. You fight Normans in Italy, who are basically your cousins who learned French. You see the world. You see elephants. You see camels. You see Greek fire, liquid fire that burns on water, but you never forget who you are. When the emperor dies, you have a unique right. The Varangians can go into the treasury and take as much gold as they can carry. You fill your pockets, you fill your boots, you go home to Sweden or Norway a rich man. You buy a farm, you tell stories of the Golden City. You are a legend. A man who walked with emperors and returned to the snow. Let's leave the gold of Constantinople and return to the iron-grey reality of the north. But this time, we aren't going to a farm or a ship. We're going to the burial mound. Death is a big deal for Vikings. They don't just bury you, they send you off. You're at a funeral for a great chieftain. His ship has been dragged onto land. He's laid out on the deck, surrounded by his wealth. Weapons, jewellery, food, horses, dogs, and a slave girl. This is the darkest part of the Viking world. Ibn Fadlan, an Arab traveller, described a Rus Viking funeral. A slave girl volunteers to die with her master. She is given intoxicating drinks. She sings. She is ritualistically killed by an old woman called the Angel of Death. It is horrifying, it is brutal, but to them it is necessary. She is going to serve him in Valhalla. The ship is set on fire. The flames roar. The smoke rises to the sky. The ship burns down to ash. Then they pile earth on top. A mound, a scar on the landscape. You watch the fire. You feel the heat on your face. You wonder about the afterlife. Valhalla is for warriors who die in battle. They fight all day and feast all night. It sounds exhausting. Folkvanger is for the other half of the slain, chosen by Freya. It is a field. Maybe it's peaceful. Hell is for those who die of sickness or old age. It is cold and damp. Not a place of punishment, just a place of waiting. You realise that Viking life is a constant negotiation with death. You fight it with swords. You cheat it with medicine. You honour it with fire. The funeral ends. The mound is silent. The chieftain is gone, but his name lives on. Cattle die. Kinsmen die. You walk away. The smoke lingers in your clothes. You are alive, and that is enough. Let's leave the smoke of the funeral pyre and head to a place that is as much about life as the burial mound is about death. The feast hall. It is Yule, midwinter. The sun hasn't been seen properly for weeks. The world is dark and frozen. But inside the hall it is bright. The hall is the Jarl's home, but tonight it belongs to everyone. The long tables are set up. Benches are covered in furs. The fire in the central hearth is piled high with logs crackling and spitting. The smoke drifts up to the blackened roof beams, where carvings of dragons and serpents seem to writhe in the flickering light. The smell is incredible. Roasted pork, the boar near Valhalla recreated on earth. Boiled beef, horse meat, a pagan delicacy, later banned by the church. Fish, smoked and salted. Bread, fresh from the stone ovens. But the main event is the drink. Ale, brewed in massive vats. And mead. Mead is honey wine. It is sweet, potent, and sticky. It is the drink of gods and poets. You drink it from a horn, a literal cow horn, hollowed out and tipped with metal. The problem with a horn is you can't put it down. You have to hold it until it's empty. This leads to efficient drinking. The Jarl sits on the high seat. He wears a red cloak and gold arm rings. He is the ring giver. He rewards loyalty with gold. He stands up. He raises his horn. Skål! The shout echoes off the walls. Everyone drinks. A skald steps forward. He has a harp. He starts to sing. He doesn't just sing, he performs. He tells the story of Thor fishing for the Midgard serpent. He tells of Odin sacrificing his eye for wisdom. He tells of Ragnarok, the end of the world. The audience is rapt. They know the stories, but they love the telling. They cheer when Thor hits the giant. They groan when Loki tricks the gods. Then the symbol begins. It is a ritual of toasting. First to the gods, then to the ancestors, then to each other. You make boasts. I will sail to Ireland. I will kill a wolf with my bare hands. These aren't just drunk words. They are oaths. If you don't do it, you are shamed. The alcohol binds you to your promise. The night wears on. People are drunk. Arguments start. You owe me a silver penny? Your dog bit my sheep. But the Jarl keeps the peace. He is the anchor. You look around. These are your people. They are loud, violent and messy. But they are also generous, brave and poetic. You eat a piece of honey cake. You drink more mead. The cold outside feels 1,000,000 miles away. You're in the heart of the fire. Let's leave the noise of the feast hall and step into a quieter, more secretive world. The runestone carver's workshop. You're not a warrior. You're a memorial maker. You work with stone, granite. It is hard, unforgiving, and eternal. A family has come to you. Their son died in Cirkland, the land of the Saracens, the Middle East. He never came home. They want a stone to remember him. You select a massive slab of rock. You smooth the face. You draw the design in charcoal first. 2 serpents, their bodies twisted into intricate knots. Inside the loop of the serpent's body, you will carve the runes. Runes are not just letters, they are magic. Odin hung on the world tree for 9 days to learn them. To carve them is to channel power. You take your chisel and hammer, clink, clink, clink. You carve the Futhark letters. Tola had this stone raised in memory of her son Gaia, a very good dreng. He died in the east with Ingvar. A dreng is a warrior, a solid guy, a stand-up man. It is the highest compliment. You paint the runes with red ochre mixed with fat, or sometimes blood. The red makes the letters pop against the grey stone. This stone will stand by a road or a bridge. People will see it for 1,000 years. They will say Geir's name. As long as his name is spoken, he is not truly dead. You are giving him immortality. It is heavy work. Your hands are calloused. Your eyes are full of dust. But it is sacred work. You finish the carving. You step back. The red serpents seem to writhe on the stone. You have trapped a memory in rock. Let's leave the solitary work of the rune carver and head to a place that is loud, hot, and smells of molten glass, the beadmaker's workshop. You might not associate Vikings with glass beads, but they loved them. Blue, yellow, red, white. They were currency, jewellery, and status symbols. You're in a workshop in Ribe, a major trade town. You have rods of coloured glass imported from Italy or the Middle East. You melt them over a small, intense fire. You wind the molten glass around a metal mandrel. It looks like honey. You layer colours. You make eye beads, blue beads with white and red dots that look like eyes. They ward off evil. You work fast. The glass cools quickly. You use a knife to shape it. You are making tiny, durable pieces of art. A necklace of these beads is worth a fortune. A woman will wear them between her tortoise brooches, the oval brooches that hold up her apron dress. You are surrounded by colour in a world that is mostly grey and brown. The fire reflects in your eyes. You are bringing a little bit of the Mediterranean sun to the north. Let's leave the heat of the glass workshop and go somewhere colder, wetter, and infinitely more dangerous, the whale hunt. You are in a small boat, a fairing, off the coast of Norway. You're not hunting with a harpoon gun. You are hunting with a spear and a lot of courage. You see the spout, a fin whale, massive. It is bigger than your boat. You row quietly. The goal is to drive it into a fjord, into shallow water where it can be beached. You throw the spear. It hits. The whale dives. The rope screams as it plays out. The boat is towed. This is the Nantucket sleigh ride, Viking style. It is hours of struggle, man versus Leviathan. If the whale turns, you die. If the rope snaps, you lose the prize. Finally, the whale tires. You drive it onto the shore. The whole village comes out. This is a bonanza. Meat for the winter, blubber for oil to light the lamps, bones for tools, even the skin is eaten. Mattak. Nothing is wasted. You stand on the beach, covered in blood and salt water. You're exhausted. But you have provided for your people. You have wrestled a monster and won. Let's leave the bloody beach of the whale hunt and head inland, to a place of quiet, methodical craftsmanship, the shipbuilder's yard. You are watching the birth of a dragon. The shipwright is a master. He doesn't use plans. He uses his eyes and his hands. He walks through the forest and selects the perfect oaks, trees with natural curves that can become the ribs of the ship. He splits the logs with wedges, not a saw. Saws cut across the grain, making the wood weak. Splitting follows the grain, making it strong and flexible. He shapes the keel, the spine of the ship. It is a single, massive piece of oak. Then the planks. He overlaps them, clinker-built. He rivets them together with iron nails. He caulks the gaps with tarred animal hair. The ship is flexible. It is designed to twist with the waves, not fight them. It is a living thing. You watch him carve the stem post, the head of a dragon. It isn't just decoration. It is a spirit scare. It frightens the land wights, the guardian spirits of the enemy coast. When the ship is launched, it slides into the water like a seal. It is fast, shallow, and deadly. It is the most advanced technology of the age. You realize that the Viking Age isn't built on violence. It is built on wood, iron, and genius engineering. Let's leave the shipyard and step into the sacred smoky darkness of the temple at Uppsala. This isn't a Christian church. It is a pagan sanctuary. Adam of Bremen described it as all gold. Inside there are statues of 3 gods. Thor, the strongest, stands in the middle. He controls the weather and the crops. Woden, Odin, the god of war and wisdom, stands on one side. Fricko, Freya, the god of fertility and peace, stands on the other. It is the time of the great sacrifice, the blot, every 9 years people gather here. They bring offerings. You see the sacred grove outside. The trees are evergreen. Bodies hang from the branches. Men, horses, dogs. It is a grim sight to modern eyes, but to them it is a necessary exchange. You give life to get life. The air smells of blood and pine. The chanting is rhythmic, deep and hypnotic. You realize that Viking religion isn't about salvation. It is about bargaining. You give the gods what they want, and hopefully they give you a good harvest or a victory in battle. It is transactional. You watch the high priest, the Gothi. He sprinkles the blood of the sacrifice onto the statues and the people using a twig. It is a blessing. You feel the weight of belief. These people live in a harsh world. They need powerful gods. Let's leave the intense atmosphere of the temple and head to a place of quiet domestic industry, the loom room. In the Viking world, women are the weavers of fate and fabric. The loom is vertical, leaning against the wall. The warp threads are weighted with stones. You are a housewife, a husfreyja. You are weaving vadmal, coarse wool cloth. It is the currency of the north. In Iceland, prices are set in ells of vadmal. You pay your taxes in cloth. You walk back and forth, passing the shuttle through the threads. It is a rhythmic dance. Step, throw, beat, step, throw, beat. You're making a cloak for your husband. You weave protection into it, using red thread for the borders, because red wards off evil. You are also the keeper of history. As you weave, you tell stories to your children. The story of Gudrun, who took revenge on her enemies. The story of Brynhild, the Valkyrie. The room is warm, the fire crackles. The smell of lanolin is strong. You realize that while the men are out raiding, the women are holding the world together. They manage the farm, the food, and the cloth. They are the anchors. You finish a roux. You pack it down. The cloth is thick, strong, and warm. It will survive the storm. Let's leave the loom and step into the noisy, competitive world of Viking games. Because even in the harshest environments, people need to play. You're at a local gathering. Men are wrestling Glima. It is a game of balance and strength. You hold on to your opponent's belt, you circle, you try to throw him. It isn't about hurting him, it's about control. There is a horse fight. Two stallions are goaded into fighting each other. The crowd cheers. It is brutal, but it tests the breeding stock. But the most surprising game? Poetry. A flighting match. It is a rap battle with axes. Two men insult each other in verse. You're a coward who runs from battle. You're a fool whose mother was a troll. The insults must be clever, rhythmic, and follow the strict rules of skaldic verse. If you stutter, you lose. If your rhyme is weak, you lose. The crowd laughs and judges. A sharp tongue is as respected as a sharp sword. You watch a game of Natlicker, a ball game played on ice with bats. It is like hockey, but with more injuries and no referee. You realise that Viking play is just training for Viking life. It is competitive, physical, and requires quick wits. You drink ale. You cheer. You are part of the tribe. Let's leave the games and enter the quiet mystical space of the seeress's tent. She's called a völva. She travels from farm to farm carried on a litter, because she's too holy to walk. She wears a blue cloak set with stones and a hood of black lambskin lined with white cat fur. She carries a staff, the symbol of her power. You're at a feast, but tonight is serious. The crops have failed. The people want to know what the future holds. She sits on a high seat with a cushion of hen's feathers. She eats a special meal, the hearts of every animal on the farm. She begins to chant, Galder. It is a high-pitched, rhythmic song. The women of the household join in, creating a wall of sound. She enters a trance. Her eyes roll back. She speaks to the spirits. I see a hard winter, she says, but I see ships returning with silver in the spring. The people relax. They trust her. She is the bridge between the visible world and the unseen. You realize that in a world without science, prophecy is a necessity. It gives people hope. It gives them a reason to keep going when the darkness closes in. She finishes her trance. She looks exhausted. She's just an old woman again. But for a moment, she held the fate of the village in her hands. Let's leave the seeress's tent and head to a place that is as much about trust as it is about celebration. The blood brother ceremony. You are witnessing a bond being forged. Two warriors, friends who have fought side by side, have decided to become closer than family. They cut a strip of turf from the earth, leaving the ends attached, and prop it up with a spear. This is the earth necklace. They walk under it, symbolizing their rebirth from the same earth. They cut their palms. They let their blood drip into the soil beneath the turf. They mix their blood with the earth. They swear an oath. If one falls, the other will avenge him. This is not a casual promise. In a society without a police force, vengeance is the only justice. If someone kills your blood brother, you must kill them, or their family, or take a heavy fine, Wergild. If you don't, you are shamed. You lose your honour. They clasp hands. They are now bound for life. They exchange gifts, swords, or rings. You realise that Viking society is built on these webs of obligation. You're not an individual, you're a node in a network of loyalty. The ceremony ends. They drink together. The bond is sealed. Let's leave the intense ceremony of blood brothers and step into the silent, frozen landscape of the high mountains. We're going to the iron mine. Except, it isn't a mine. It is a bog. You're a bog iron hunter. It is autumn. The water is freezing. You are wading through a swamp, poking the mud with a spear. You're looking for ore stones, lumps of iron that form naturally in the peat. When you hit one, it makes a dull thud. You dig it out. It is rusty, heavy, and ugly. You gather a pile of these stones. You build a furnace out of clay. You burn charcoal, thanks to our friend from Chapter 1. You melt the ore. It is slow, back-breaking work. You have to pump the bellows for hours. The heat singes your eyebrows. But when you break open the furnace, you find a bloom, a spongy lump of iron. You hammer it to get the impurities, slag, out. This is the raw material of the Viking Age. Every sword, every axe, every nail in every ship starts here in the mud. You're not a warrior. You're a muddy man in a swamp. But you are the foundation of the civilization. Without you, the Vikings are just farmers with sticks. You load the iron onto a sled. You drag it home. Your hands are stained red with rust. You are tired. But you have made metal from dirt. Let's leave the bog and head to the one place in the Viking world where the law is spoken and the gods are silent. The Althing in Iceland. You are standing on the Law Rock. Before you is a vast plain filled with booths and tents. Thousands of people have gathered here. This is the world's oldest parliament. There is no king here. There are Godi, chieftains, but they rule by consent. The law speaker stands up. He recites the law. With law shall our land be built, and with lawlessness laid waste. You are watching a trial. A man has killed another in a duel, Holmgang. Was it legal? Did he follow the rules? The judges debate. They are farmers, not lawyers. They use common sense. The verdict is given. The killer must pay weregild, man price, to the victim's family. If he doesn't, he is outlawed. You realize that this is a radical experiment in self-government. In a world of tyrants, these farmers are trying to rule themselves. It is messy. Feuds break out. People are killed. But for 2 weeks every summer, the law reigns supreme. You walk through the camp, people are trading, drinking, and arranging marriages. It is a festival of democracy. You feel proud. You are part of a society that values the word as much as the sword. Let's leave the political drama of the all thing and head to a place that is darker, deeper, and smells of fermentation. The brewery. Vikings drink a lot. But not just for fun. In a world where water can kill you, ale is survival. You are a brewwife. Brewing is women's work. The cauldron is your domain. You're making ale for the winter. You soak the barley until it sprouts, malting. You dry it over a fire. You crush it. You boil it with water and herbs. Bog myrtle, yarrow, juniper. Hops haven't arrived yet. You add the magic stick. This is a wooden stirring stick passed down from mother to daughter. It is covered in yeast from previous batches. When you stir the wort, it starts to bubble. To you, it is magic. To us, it is microbiology. You taste the brew. It is bitter, earthy, and strong. It will keep the men happy during the long nights. It will be offered to the gods. You realize that the brewery is the pharmacy of the Viking world. Ale is a painkiller, a disinfectant, and a source of calories. You pour a horn for yourself. It warms you. You are the keeper of the liquid courage. Let's leave the brewery and step into the quiet concentration of the boneworker's bench. You are making a comb, not from plastic, but from antler, red deer or reindeer. It is a tough material, harder than wood but softer than stone. You saw the antler into plates. You file them smooth. You use a fine saw to cut the teeth. Each tooth must be perfect. If one breaks, the comb is useless. You rivet the plates together with iron pins. You carve a design on the handle, a wolf or a geometric pattern. This isn't just a toiletry item. A comb is a personal treasure. Vikings are vain. They carry their combs everywhere. If you die, your comb is buried with you. You also make ice skates from horse leg bones. You flatten the bottom, drill holes for leather straps. Children will use them to glide across frozen lakes. You make needles from pig fibulas. You make dice from sheep knuckles. You realize that in a world without factories, everything comes from nature. The animal that fed you also provides the tools to groom yourself and the games to entertain yourself. Nothing is wasted. You blow the bone dust off your workbench, it settles like snow. You pick up the finished comb, it is smooth, white, and beautiful. It is a small piece of civilization in a wild world. Let's leave the bone workshop and head to a place that is as beautiful as it is cold. The Sami reindeer camp. The Vikings are not the only people in the north. The Sami live here too. They are reindeer herders. They trade with the Vikings. Furs for iron. You are in a lavu, a tent similar to a tipi. It is, covered in reindeer skins. The floor is covered in birch twigs and furs. Outside, the herd is moving, thousands of reindeer. Their hooves click as they walk. They dig through the snow to find lichen. You are wearing a gakti, a tunic made of blue wool decorated with red and yellow ribbons. You wear boots made of reindeer skin, filled with sedge grass for insulation. They are warmer than any Viking boot. You watch the shaman, the Noaidi. He beats a drum painted with red symbols. He sings a joik, a song that doesn't just describe a person or a place, but captures their essence. The Vikings fear the Sami. They believe they can control the wind and shapeshift into wolves. But you know they are just experts at surviving in a land where Vikings would freeze. You drink reindeer milk. It is rich and fatty. You eat dried reindeer meat. You realize that there are many ways to live in the north. The Vikings fight the land. The Sami move with it. Let's leave the snowy camp of the Sami and return to the rugged coastline, to a place where salt and smoke meet. The fish drying racks. You're standing in a field of wooden frames. Yell. Hanging from them are thousands of cod. They are headless, split open, and drying in the wind. This is stockfish. It is the fuel of the Viking Age. It can last for years without rotting. It is light, packed with protein, and easy to transport. You are a fishwife. You gut the fish with a knife that is older than you are. Your hands are red, scaled, and tough. You tie the fish in pairs by their tails and throw them over the racks. The smell is overpowering. It is the smell of money. This fish will be traded for grain, iron, and cloth. It will feed the sailors who discover Iceland and Greenland. It will feed the armies that invade England. But the work is hard. The wind bites. The fish are cold and slimy. Seagulls scream overhead, trying to steal your profits. You chase them away with a stick. You realize that while the sagas sing of warriors, the real heroes are the people who make sure there is food when the snow comes. Without the stockfish, the long ships would never leave the harbour. You finish the last row. You wipe your hands on your apron. You look out at the sea. It is grey, cold, and generous. Let's leave the drying racks and return to the longhouse one last time. But not during the day. It is night. The deep, heavy, eternal night of the northern winter. The fire has burned down to a bed of glowing coals. The room is in shadow. The air is still, but it is alive with the breathing of your family, your thralls, and your animals. But before you sleep, let's think about the invisible threads that hold this Viking world together. It isn't just axes and longships. It is the concept of hamingja, luck, or perhaps destiny. It is a force that runs in families. If your father was lucky, you might inherit it. If you act honourably, you increase it. If you act shamefully, you lose it. It is the concept of frith, peace and social order. Within the kinship group, frith must be maintained. You don't fight your brother. You don't steal from your neighbour. If you break frith, you unravel the fabric of society. It is the belief in the Dizir, female guardian spirits who watch over the family. You leave them offerings. You dream of them. You think about the people you've met on this journey, the rower fighting the storm, the blacksmith forging the future, the weaver creating warmth, the seeress seeing the unseen. They are all struggling against the same enemies, the cold, the hunger, the darkness. But they are also embracing it. They don't hide from the winter. They ski across it. They don't fear the ocean. They ride it. You're living in a culture that doesn't believe in comfort, but believes passionately in vitality, in action, in leaving a mark on the world, whether it's a rune on a stone or a story told by the fire. You turn over on your bench, the furs are soft. The smell of wood smoke is home. You're tired, but you are not defeated. You're ready for whatever the Norns have spun for you. You listen to the wind outside. It is still trying to get in. But the turf roof holds. The walls hold. You are safe. The embers in the central hearth have finally faded to a dull, pulsing red. The warmth is retreating, replaced by the encroaching chill of the Nordic night. The longhouse is silent, save for the rhythmic breathing of the household and the occasional shift of a cow in the byre. The Viking world has stopped moving. The axe is hung. The oar is stowed. The loom is still. The great, relentless struggle for survival has paused, waiting for the pale dawn to restart the cycle. But you don't have to wait for the dawn. You don't have to wake up to the freezing floor, the smoky air, or the uncertainty of the sea, because your time here is done. As the darkness deepens, the heavy timber beams of the roof begin to dissolve. The smell of wood smoke, wet wool and dried fish fades away, replaced by the scent of clean air. The fur-covered bench beneath you softens, smoothing out into something clean and supportive. You're no longer in the 9th century. You're no longer fighting the North Sea. You're back in your own bed. The air is clear. The temperature is controlled. There are no drafts, no trolls in the forest, no raiders on the horizon. You're safe in the modern world, protected by centuries of progress that you didn't have to fight for, but you get to enjoy. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress. Your arms, tired from rowing, are heavy and relaxed. Your hands, unclenched from holding the axe or the oar, are open and still. The tension of the Viking day has left your shoulders. You don't have to worry about the harvest. You don't have to fear the winter. You don't have to pray for a safe voyage. You just have to sleep. The past is a brutal, beautiful, terrifying place to visit. It is a testament to how much the human body and spirit can endure. You have witnessed the storm and the silence. You have seen how hard it was just to stay alive. But now you have the greatest luxury of all, safety. Let the darkness wrap around you, not as a threat but as a blanket. Let the quiet fill your mind. The story is over. The struggle is finished. Sleep well. The past will always be there, waiting in the sagas and the runestones. But tonight, the night belongs to you. Good night. Hey guys, welcome back to the frozen, muddy, and surprisingly complex world of the Vikings. If you thought the North Sea was rough, wait until you see what happens when the water runs out and you have to drag a ship across a forest floor. Tonight, we are heading east, following the river routes into Russia and down to the Black Sea, where the Vikings weren't just raiders, they were the heavy haulers of the medieval world. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, would you rather face a North Sea storm or a swarm of river mosquitoes in a swamp? It's a tough choice. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, pull the blanket up a little higher, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 860 AD. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, you're currently acting as a human, ox, dragging a 2-ton ship over a mountain of logs. You wake up not to the sound of waves, but to the buzzing of a million mosquitoes. You're in the deep forests of what will one day be Russia. The air is thick, humid, and smells of pine resin, swamp water, and the sweat of 50 exhausted men. You are a Russ, a Swedish Viking venturing east. You aren't looking for monasteries to raid, you're looking for the silver of the Arab caliphates. But to get there, you have to navigate the river systems, and right now the river has a waterfall. This is the portage. It is the most hated word in the Viking vocabulary. You stand up, your boots sink into the mud, you are covered in bites. The local insects treat your linen tunic as a suggestion rather than a barrier. You slap your neck, leaving a smear of blood. The ship, your lifeline, your home, your fortress, is out of the water. It sits on a track of greased logs. Your job, along with your shipmates, is to pull it, uphill, through, the trees, for 6 miles. You grab the rope. It is rough hemp digging into your calloused palms. You wrap it around your shoulder. Heave, the captain shouts. He's a man named Bjorn, who seems to enjoy this way too much. You pull. The ship groans. It slides forward a few inches. Grind, crack. The logs beneath it settle into the earth. You step forward, slipping on wet leaves. You pull again. The physical strain is immense. Your back muscles are knots of fire. Your legs burn. The humidity makes the air feel like soup. You're sweating so much your eyes sting, but you can't stop. The forest is watching. The local Slavic tribes know you are here. They are watching from the tree line. If you show weakness, if you stop to rest, an arrow might fly out of the shadows. You have to keep moving. You have to look strong, even if you feel like dying. You look at the cargo, bales of furs, sable, fox, beaver, casks of honey, and amber. This heavy load makes the ship harder to pull, but it is the reason you are here. If you get this to Constantinople, or even to the Khazar markets, you will be rich. You step over a root. You stumble. The man behind you grabs your tunic and hauls you up. "Stay on your feet, fool," he hisses, "or the ship will roll over you." He is right. The ship is a massive deadweight. If the ropes snap or if the men slip, gravity takes over. Hours pass. The sun climbs higher, baking the forest. The smell of pine needles is overwhelming. You are thirsty, but the water in the skins is warm and tastes of leather. Finally, you hear it. The sound of rushing water. The other side of the rapids. "Downhill now," Bjorn shouts. This is the dangerous part. You have to control the descent. You use the ropes to hold the ship back. It wants to slide, to crash into the river below. You dig your heels into the dirt. You slide. Mud sprays everywhere. The ship hits the water with a massive splash. A cheer goes up. You collapse onto the riverbank. You are covered in mud, sweat, and bug bites. You're shaking with exhaustion. But you did it. The river is open again. The road to the south, the road to silver, is clear. You crawl back into the ship. The wood feels cool against your skin. You pick up your oar. Compared to dragging the ship, rowing feels like a vacation. You push off. The current catches you. You are moving again. You row down the river. The forest walls rise high on either side, a green tunnel that feels endless. The water is dark, sluggish, and deep. You are navigating the Dnieper, the Volkhov, the Volga, the arteries of the east. Days blend into weeks. The rowing is monotonous, but it is rhythmic. Pull, glide, pull, glide. You watch the trees. Sometimes you see a bear fishing at the water's edge. Sometimes you see a village, smoke rising from thatched roofs. You stop to trade. This isn't a raid. You need supplies. You pull up to a Slavic settlement. The locals are wary. You're big, armed, and speak a strange language. But you have things they want. Combs, glass beads, high-quality iron knives. They have things you want. Fresh bread, dried meat, wax for waterproofing the ship. The transaction is tense. You keep your hand near your axe. They keep their hands on their spears. But greed, or need, overcomes fear. You exchange goods. No money changes hands, just value for value. You continue south. The landscape changes. The forests thin out. The air gets hotter. You're entering the steppe. The steppe is an ocean of grass. It stretches from horizon to horizon, flat and endless. There is no shade. The sun beats down on you, and there are new dangers. The pechenegs. They are nomadic horse archers. They move faster than the wind. They watch the river. They know the rapids are choke points. You reach the cataracts of the Dnieper. Massive rocks block the river. You have to portage again. But this time, you aren't hidden by trees. You're exposed on the open rock. You form a defensive perimeter. Half the men pull the ship. The other half stand guard with shields and bows. You scan the horizon. A cloud of dust. Riders. Shields! Bjorn roars. You drop the rope and grab your shield. You lock it with the man next to you. A shield wall. Arrows fly. Thwack! Thwack! They hit the wood of the shields. One hits a man in the leg. He grunts but stays standing. You wait. The pechenegs circle. They are testing you. If you break, they will slaughter you. If you hold, they might decide you aren't worth the trouble. You hold. You sweat in your wool tunic. You grip your axe until your knuckles are white. The riders turn away. They are looking for easier prey. You let out a breath. You get back to the ropes. You drag the ship over the rocks under the burning sun with arrows sticking out of your shield. This is the price of silver. Every coin you eventually bring home will be paid for in sweat and fear. Finally, the river widens. The air smells different, salty, humid, and warm. You see seagulls, and then you see it. The Black Sea. It is vast, blue and glittering. It looks like a jewel. After months of green rivers and brown mud, the blue is shocking. You hoist the sail. The wind catches it. The ship leaps forward. You're no longer a river rat, you're a sailor again. You head south toward the city that is the centre of the world. Miklagard, Constantinople. You're tired, battered, and far from home, but you're about to see things that no one in your village would believe. Let's leave the Black Sea behind for a moment and jump to a place that is darker, smokier, and filled with a different kind of intensity. The Viking Hall in winter. We visited a feast before, but let's look closer at the daily reality of living in a longhouse during the deep winter. You're snowed in. The snow is piled up to the eaves. You haven't seen the sun for a month. The only light comes from the hearth fire and the oil lamps, bowls of fish oil with a moss wick. You're living with your extended family, your slaves, and your livestock. It is crowded, it is noisy, and it smells. The smell is a complex bouquet. Wood smoke is the dominant note. Then there is the smell of unwashed wool, drying leather, and fermenting food. And the animals. The cows are just on the other side of a low wooden partition. You can hear them chewing. You can smell the manure. But you don't mind. The cows are heat. A cow produces as much heat as a small radiator. You're sleeping in a barn because it keeps you alive. You are bored. Cabin fever is a real threat. To pass the time, you play games. Nefertafel, Viking chess. Dice, or you gamble. You bet on everything. Will the snow stop tomorrow? Which chicken will lay an egg first? You craft. You take a piece of bone and carve a needle case. You take a piece of wood and carve a spoon. You are constantly making things. If your hands are busy, your mind doesn't dwell on the darkness. And you tell stories, not just the big myths, but local gossip. Who is sleeping with whom? Whose cow died? Who cheated at the last thing? The skald, the poet, recites a poem. But it isn't just entertainment. It is news. He tells of a battle in Ireland. He tells of a new trade route. You listen intently. Information is survival. You eat preserved food, salted meat, dried fish, pickled cabbage, sour milk, skyer. It is monotonous, but it keeps you alive. You dream of fresh greens. You dream of strawberries. Sometimes, the mood turns dark. Arguments flare up. In a small space, a small annoyance can turn into a blood feud. You looked at my wife. You kicked my dog. Axes are close at hand. The Jarl has to mediate. He is the peacekeeper. He distracts the men with more mead. He organises a wrestling match outside in the snow to burn off the aggression. You step outside to watch. The cold is shocking. It freezes the moisture in your nose instantly. The aurora is dancing overhead. The snow is blue in the moonlight. You watch the men wrestle. They are laughing, steam rising from their bodies. They are alive. You realise that winter isn't just a season. It is an enemy you fight together. You go back inside. The warmth wraps around you. You drink a horn of ale. You're safe in the womb of the longhouse. Let's leave the longhouse and head to a place where the air smells of sulphur, hot metal, and ancient earth. The bog. But we aren't hunting for iron this time. We are hunting for peat. You are a peat cutter. In a land without trees, like Iceland or parts of the Orkneys, peat is the only fuel you have. If you don't cut enough peat in the summer, you freeze in the winter. Simple as that. You stand in the bog armed with a tusker, a special spade with a wing on the side to cut square blocks. The ground is spongy and wet. You slice into the earth. It makes a satisfying squelch. You lift out a heavy black brick of compressed plant matter. It is physically demanding work. Your back aches. Your boots are soaked. The midges, tiny biting flies, are swarming your face. You can't slap them because your hands are covered in mud. You stack the peat bricks in little pyramids to dry. They have to dry perfectly. If they are too wet, they won't burn. They will just smoulder and fill your house with acrid yellow smoke that stings your eyes and makes you cough. You look at the layers of the bog. You see roots, preserved leaves, sometimes even ancient trees, bog oak, that turned black and hard as stone thousands of years ago. You're digging into history to burn it for warmth. Sometimes you find other things, a shoe, a butter churn, or a body. The bog preserves everything. You might uncover a bog body, someone sacrificed or executed centuries before the Vikings arrived. Their skin is tanned like leather, their hair red from the peat water. They look like they are sleeping. You treat the bog with respect. It is a liminal space, neither land nor water. It is a gateway to the other world. You leave a small offering, a silver coin, a piece of bread. You load the dried peat onto a cart. It is lighter now, but still dusty. You haul it back to the farm. You stack it against the wall of the longhouse. It is your insulation and your fuel. That night you burn a block. It glows with a steady red heat. The smell is distinctive, earthy, sweet, and ancient. It is the scent of the north. You warm your hands. You realize that you are burning the past to survive the present. Let's leave the smoky warmth of the peat fire and step into the chaotic, loud, and incredibly important world of the Viking boat builder. But we aren't building a majestic longship this time. We're building a gnar. The longship, Draka, gets all the glory. It's fast, scary, and looks good on a raid. But the gnar is the truck of the Viking world. It is wider, deeper, and slower. It relies on sails, not oars, and without it there is no trade, no exploration, and no settlement. You are a shipwright. You're standing in a shipyard near a fjord. The smell of pine tar and sawdust is thick in the air. You're selecting timber. You need oak for the keel and pine for the planks. You walk through the forest looking for trees with natural curves. You don't force the wood, you follow it. You split the logs with wedges. Crack. The sound echoes through the trees. You shape the planks with an adze, a tool like an axe with a sideways blade. You don't use a saw. Saws cut the fibres. Splitting keeps them strong. You build the ship clinker style, overlapping the planks like shingles on a roof. You rivet them together with iron nails. Clang. Clang. Each rivet is a promise that the ship won't fall apart in the middle of the Atlantic. Then comes the caulking. You take animal hair, cow, sheep, whatever you have, spin it into a loose thread, dip it in hot tar and wedge it between the planks. It seals the ship. It smells terrible, but it keeps the ocean out. The gnar is designed to carry cargo, livestock, timber, wool, families. When Eric the Red sailed to Greenland, he didn't take a warship. He took a gnar loaded with cows and hay. You watch the ship take shape. It is ugly compared to a longship. It looks like a bathtub. But it is sturdy. It can ride out a storm that would snap a longship in half. You launch it. It slides into the water with a heavy splash. It sits low. It is ready to work. You realise that while the warriors get the songs, the traders get the wealth. The Knar is the reason Vikings could settle in Iceland, Greenland and Vinland. It is the unsung hero of the expansion. You wipe the tar from your hands. You look at the horizon. The Knar will go places you will never see. Let's leave the shipyard and head to a place that is quieter, more intricate and surprisingly colourful, the textile workshop. You might think Viking clothes are just brown rags. Wrong. Vikings love colour, they love bling. You are a dyer. Your hands are stained permanently blue, or red, or yellow. You work with huge vats of boiling liquid. To get blue, you use woad. It is a plant. You ferment the leaves in urine. Yes, again with the urine. It's the chemical hero of the past. The smell is memorable. When you dip the wool, it comes out yellow. But as it hits the air, it magically turns blue. It feels like alchemy. To get red, you use madder root. To get yellow, you use weld or onion skins. But the most prized colour is purple. True Tyrian purple is too expensive, so you use lichen or moss to create a reddish purple. It is the colour of kings. You are also a weaver. You work on a warp-weighted loom. It stands upright against the wall. You walk back and forth, passing the shuttle through the threads, step, throw, beat. You're making a tunic, but not just a plain one. You're weaving a tablet-woven trim. You use small, square cards with holes in the corners. You rotate them to twist the threads into intricate patterns of gold and silver. It takes hours to make an inch. This trim will decorate the neckline and cuffs of a wealthy man's tunic. It shows his status. It shows that someone spent hundreds of hours making him look good. You realise that Viking society is visual. You can read a person by their clothes. A blue tunic means wealth. A gold trim means power. A plain brown shirt means you are nobody. You finish the trim. It glitters in the firelight. It is a masterpiece of geometry and patience. You rub your tired eyes. The dye has seeped into your skin. You are literally marked by your trade. But you have brought colour into a grey world. Let's leave the colourful world of textiles and step into a place that is darker, quieter, and infinitely more precise. The silversmith's workshop. The Vikings don't have banks. They wear their wealth. Literally. You're a smith. You work with silver-hack silver, coins, and ingots. Your job is to turn this raw currency into art. You're making an arm ring. It is a thick, twisted spiral of silver. It isn't just jewellery. It is a wallet. If a Viking needs to pay for something, he can hack a piece off his arm ring. It is wearable wealth. You heat the silver in a crucible. It melts into a shimmering pool. You pour it into a mould or hammer it into rods. You twist the rods together while they are hot. It takes immense strength and delicate control. You stamp patterns into the metal, triangles, dots, wolf heads. A warrior comes in. He has a bag of Arabic dirhams, silver coins from the caliphate. He wants them melted down. He doesn't care about the caliph's face or the Islamic script. He cares about the weight of the silver. You weigh the coins on a delicate balance scale. You use tiny lead weights. Cheating is death. The reputation of a smith is everything. He watches you work. He tells you about his raid in Spain, about the blue tiles of Seville, about the heat. You listen. You travel vicariously through the metal. The silver in your hands was mined in Afghanistan, minted in Baghdad, traded in Russia, and is now being forged in Scandinavia. It has travelled further than you ever will. You hand him the finished ring. It shines in the firelight. He puts it on his arm. He looks richer. He looks more powerful. You take your fee, a small piece of silver hacked from the rod. You put it in your own pouch. You realise that silver is the blood of the Viking Age. It flows through trade routes, raids, and gifts. You're just the heart that pumps it. Let's leave the glint of silver and head to a place that smells of wet dog, raw meat, and intense focus. The Falconer's Muse. You're a trainer of birds, but not just any birds. You train gerfalcons, the massive white falcons of the Arctic. They are the most prestigious gifts in the medieval world. Kings in Europe will trade a ship for a good gerfalcon. You live in a hut near the cliffs where they nest. You climb the rock face to steal chicks from the nest. It is terrifying. One slip and you are dead. The mother falcon dives at you screaming. You bring the chick home. You feed it by hand. You carry it on your fist for days, never putting it down, to man it, to get it used to your presence. You sleep with the bird. You talk to the bird, you use a hood to keep it calm, you use jesses, leather straps, to hold it. Training is a battle of wills. You have to teach a wild predator to return to you instead of flying free. You use food as a bribe. A merchant comes to buy your best bird. He's taking it to the emperor in Constantinople, or the caliph in Baghdad. He pays you in silver, or perhaps imported glass. You say goodbye to the bird. You watch it being put into a cage. You feel a pang of loss. You raised it. But you know it will live in a palace, eating fresh meat from a golden plate. You look up at the sky. A wild falcon circles. You're jealous of its freedom. But you're also proud you have tamed the wind. Let's leave the muse and step into a place of intense heat, steam, and surprising luxury. The sauna. Wait, Vikings had saunas? Yes, they called them badstoffer, bathrooms. In a climate where winter lasts 6 months, heat is not just comfort, it is hygiene. You enter the small wooden building. It is built half underground to keep the heat in. Inside, a pile of stones is being heated over a fire. You are naked. Everyone is naked. Men, women, children. There is no shame here. The body is just a tool for survival. You throw water onto the hot stones. Hiss. A cloud of steam explodes into the room. The temperature spikes. You sweat. The dirt of the fields, the soot of the longhouse, the salt of the sea. It all streams off you. You beat your skin with birch twigs. It stimulates circulation. It hurts a little, but in a good way. People talk. The sauna is the confessional of the North. In the dark, steaming heat, secrets are shared, arguments are settled. I think the Jarl is making a mistake raiding south this year, someone whispers. Shh, another says. The walls have ears. You stay until you can't take the heat anymore. Then you run out into the snow. You roll in it. The shock is electric. Your heart hammers. You feel invincible. You run back inside. The cycle repeats. Heat, cold, heat, cold. By the time you dress, your skin is pink and glowing. You feel clean. You feel human again. You realize that the sauna is more than a bath. It is a reset button for the soul. Let's leave the steam of the sauna and head to the most dangerous place in the Viking world. Not the battlefield, but the kitchen during the preparation of Harkal. You're in Iceland. It is winter. Food is scarce. You have a Greenland shark. The problem? The shark's meat is toxic. It is full of urea, essentially urine, and trimethylamine oxide, which acts as an antifreeze. If you eat it fresh, you die. So you have to ferment it. You dig a hole in the gravelly sand near the shore. You bury the shark. You place heavy stones on top to press the fluids out. You leave it there for months. In the summer, you dig it up. The smell is indescribable. It smells of intense ammonia, like the strongest cleaning product you can imagine, mixed with rotting fish. You cut the meat into strips and hang it in a drying shack. It develops a brown crust. You are the fermented shark master. You check the meat daily. You slice off a piece. You taste it. It burns your mouth. It makes your eyes water. But if you don't die, it's ready. People eat it as a delicacy, usually chased with a shot of Black Death, Brennivin, a caraway-flavoured schnapps. It is a test of strength. You realise that Viking cuisine is extreme survival. They found a way to eat a poisonous monster by letting it rot in a hole. That takes a special kind of desperation. You offer a piece to a visitor, he gags, you laugh. Welcome to the North. Let's leave the pungent aroma of fermented shark and head to a place of quiet, methodical precision. The comb maker's workshop. We saw combs in the market, but let's look closer at how they are made. You are holding a red deer antler. It is hard as rock. You use a small saw to cut it into flat plates. You drill holes with a bow drill, a string wrapped around a spindle. Whir, whir. The drill spins. You push down. It bores through the bone. You rivet the plates together with iron pins. Then comes the hard part, cutting the teeth. You use a saw with a blade as thin as a hair. You cut each tooth by hand. They have to be perfectly even. If you slip, you ruin the comb. You polish it with sand and water until it shines like ivory. Why go to all this trouble? Because Vikings hate lice. A comb is a lice removal tool. It is also a status symbol. A man will give a comb to his beloved as a courting gift. You carve a message on the handle in runes. I combed my hair for you. You realise that personal hygiene is a form of love in the Viking world. Let's leave the bone workshop and head to a place that is as beautiful as it is cold. The Sami reindeer camp. The Vikings are not the only people in the north. The Sami live here too. They are reindeer herders. They trade with the Vikings, furs for iron. You are in a lavu, a tent similar to a teepee. It is covered in reindeer skins. The floor is covered in birch twigs and furs. Outside, the herd is moving. Thousands of reindeer. Their hooves click as they walk. They dig through the snow to find lichen. You're wearing a gakti, a tunic made of blue wool decorated with red and yellow ribbons. You wear boots made of reindeer skin, filled with sedge grass for insulation. They are warmer than any Viking boot. You watch the shaman, the Noaidi. He beats a drum painted with red symbols. He sings a joik, a song that doesn't just describe a person or a place, but captures their essence. The Vikings fear the Sami. They believe they can control the wind and shapeshift into wolves. But you know they are just experts at surviving in a land where Vikings would freeze. You drink reindeer milk. It is rich and fatty. You eat dried reindeer meat. You realize that there are many ways to live in the north. The Vikings fight the land. The Sami move with it. Let's leave the snowy Sami camp and head to a place that feels like the end of the world. The settlement of Greenland. You're a farmer. You followed Eric the Red here because he promised Greenland. He lied. It is mostly ice and rock. But there are 2 fjords where grass grows. You build your farm here. Life is precarious. You raise sheep and goats. Cows are hard to keep alive. You hunt seals. You trade walrus ivory, white gold wafiao, with Europe. The winters are brutal. Sometimes the sea ice doesn't melt in summer. Ships can't come. You're cut off from the world. You see the Inuit, the Skraelings. They have kayaks. They hunt whales. You trade with them, but you are wary. You build a church. It is tiny, made of stone and turf. It is the furthest outpost of Christianity. One year, the bishop dies. No ship comes to replace him. You bury your dead without a priest. You realize that you're living on the very edge of survival. If the climate cools even a little, the colony will die. And eventually it does. The little ice age comes. The grass fails. The cows die. The ships stop coming. But for now, you are here. You light a fire of driftwood. You look out at the iceberg-filled fjord. You're stubborn. You're a Greenlander. Let's leave the desolate shores of Greenland and head south, to a place where Vikings are not farmers, but elite warriors for hire, the Varangian Guard barracks in Constantinople. We visited the city briefly before, but let's look closer at the daily life of these mercenaries. You are a Varangian. You are huge, bearded, and carry a weapon no one else can lift, the Dane axe. It is a 2-handed monster capable of cleaving a horse's head. You live in luxury. The emperor pays you in gold. You have servants. You bathe in marble bathhouses. You drink wine mixed with pine resin, retsina. But you're also an outsider. The Greeks call you axe-bearing barbarians. They admire your strength but mock your table manners. Your job is simple. Protect the emperor. From whom? Everyone. His generals, his family, the mob. The emperor trusts you because you have no political ambition. You just want the gold. You stand guard in the great palace. The walls are covered in mosaics. Mechanical lions roar at the throne. It is a world of intrigue and poison. You see a courtier whisper to a general. You grip your axe. If they move wrong, you strike. You're loyal to the death, or until the contract expires. When the emperor dies, you have the right to Plutuswaff, the palace pillage. You can take whatever you can carry. It is the ultimate severance package. You're a Viking in a toga, a wolf in a gilded cage, and you love it. Let's leave the gilded cage of Constantinople and return to the rugged, windswept reality of a Viking trade town like Hedeby. But this time, we're going to look at something very small, very valuable, and very controversial, the coin die. You are a moneyer. You make coins. You sit in a small workshop, you have a die, an iron punch engraved with a design. Usually it's a cross or a king's face. You put a blank silver disc on an anvil. You hold the die over it. You strike it with a hammer. Clang! You have made a penny. But here is the trick. Vikings don't really care whose face is on the coin. They care about the weight of the silver. They test it by biting it or bending it. You're also a counterfeiter. Sometimes you mix copper into the silver. It is risky. If the Jarl catches you, the punishment is severe. You might lose a hand. But you also see coins from everywhere. Arabic dirhams, Frankish deniers, English pennies. You realize that money is a language. It speaks of power, trade, and trust. A coin minted in Baghdad can end up buried in a hoard in Sweden. It is a physical record of a connected world. You strike another coin. The silver gleams. It is small, but it can buy a sword, a slave, or a ship. Let's leave the coin workshop and head to a place that is as much about trust as it is about celebration. The Blood Brother Ceremony. You're witnessing a bond being forged. Two warriors, friends who have fought side by side, have decided to become closer than family. They cut a strip of turf from the earth, leaving the ends attached, and prop it up with a spear. This is the Earth Necklace. They walk under it, symbolizing their rebirth from the same earth. They cut their palms. They let their blood drip into the soil beneath the turf. They mix their blood with the earth. They swear an oath. If one falls, the other will avenge him. This is not a casual promise. In a society without a police force, vengeance is the only justice. If someone kills your blood brother, you must kill them, or their family, or take a heavy fine, were guild. If you don't, you are shamed. You lose your honour. They clasp hands. They are now bound for life. They exchange gifts, swords or rings. You realise that Viking society is built on these webs of obligation. You're not an individual. You are a node in a network of loyalty. The ceremony ends. They drink together. The bond is sealed. Let's leave the intense ceremony of blood brothers and step into the silent, frozen landscape of the high mountains. We're going to the iron mine. Except it isn't a mine. It is a bog. You're a bog iron hunter. It is autumn. The water is freezing. You're wading through a swamp, poking the mud with a spear. You're looking for ore stones, lumps of iron that form naturally in the peat. When you hit one, it makes a dull thud. You dig it out. It is rusty, heavy, and ugly. You gather a pile of these stones. You build a furnace out of clay. You burn charcoal, thanks to our friend from Chapter 1. You melt the ore. It is slow, back-breaking work. You have to pump the bellows for hours. The heat singes your eyebrows. But when you break open the furnace, you find a bloom, a spongy lump of iron. You hammer it to get the impurities, slag, out. This is the raw material of the Viking Age. Every sword, every axe, every nail in every ship starts here in the mud. You're not a warrior. You're a muddy man in a swamp. But you are the foundation of the civilization. Without you, the Vikings are just farmers with sticks. You load the iron onto a sled. You drag it home. Your hands are stained red with rust. You're tired, but you have made metal from dirt. Let's leave the rusty, muddy water of the iron bog and ascend into the pure, blinding whiteness of the high fells. The world here is silent. The snow is 6 feet deep. If you tried to walk in it, you would sink and die of exhaustion in an hour. But you are not walking. You are flying. You're wearing skid skis. They are long planks of pine or birch, but they aren't like modern skis. They are asymmetrical. The left ski is long, maybe 3 meters, and smooth. It is the glider. The right ski is shorter and covered in fur on the bottom. It is the kicker. You use it to push off the fur gripping the snow. You push, kick, glide, kick, glide. The sound is a rhythmic whisper. Swish, swish. It is the quietest way to travel in the world. You are a hunter. You carry a bow made of yew and a quiver of arrows. You're tracking an elk. The elk is heavy. It sinks in the snow. It is tired. You are light. You float on the surface. The air is thin and sharp. It burns your lungs in a good way. The sun is a pale disk low on the horizon, casting long blue shadows across the snowdrifts. You feel a connection to Urla, the god of winter, hunting and skiing. He is not a flashy god like Thor. He is silent, deadly, and solitary. He is the god of the lone track, in the snow. Skiing isn't a sport for you. It is a superpower. It turns the deadly winter landscape into a highway. While the farmers are trapped in their longhouses, breathing smoke and arguing, you're moving across the mountains at the speed of a running wolf. You crest a ridge. You see the elk in the valley below. You stop. You plant your single ski pole. You breathe out, a cloud of white steam. You don't shoot yet. You just watch. In this frozen world, you and the elk are the only living things. You realize that winter isn't just a time of death. It is a time of clarity. The snow covers the mud, the rot, and the complexity of the world, leaving only white perfection. You push off again. The wind rushes past your ears. You're the master of the snow. Let's descend from the silent mountains and return to the chaotic, vibrant, and surprisingly complex world of Viking lore. But not the local thing. We're going to the Althing in Iceland, the grandfather of parliaments. Imagine a vast plain, the Thingvellir, split by a tectonic rift where the continents are literally pulling apart. It is a dramatic scar on the earth. Here, once a year, every chieftain, Godi, and free farmer in Iceland gathers. It is a festival of democracy, Viking style. Thousands of people set up booths, temporary turf houses. They trade, they feast, they arrange marriages, and they argue, endlessly. You stand at the Lögberg, the law rock. The law speaker, the only elected official in the country, stands there. He has no power to enforce laws. He just remembers them. He recites 1/3 of the law code each year from memory. With law shall our land be built, and with lawlessness laid waste. You are watching a trial. A man named Gunnar has killed 2 men in a feud. But was it murder? Or was it self-defense? Or was it a legal duel? The judges debate. They are farmers, not lawyers. They look for consensus. If Gunnar is found guilty, he won't go to prison. There are no prisons. He will be declared an outlaw. An outlaw can be killed by anyone with no penalty. He cannot be fed, sheltered, or helped. He must leave the country or live alone in the highlands like a ghost. But there is a twist. Gunnar can offer Vergild man price. If he pays enough silver or cows or cloth to the victims' families, the blood feud ends. It is a system designed to stop violence with money. It doesn't always work. The sagas are full of feuds that last for generations, spiralling out of control until everyone is dead. But the attempt at law is remarkable. You walk through the camp. You see a sword duel being fought on a small island in the river, Holmgang. It is a legal way to settle a dispute. If you step off the cloak spread on the ground, you lose. You see a marriage being negotiated. I will give 20 cows if you give the farm. You realize that Viking society is not anarchy. It is an intense, complicated web of honor, obligation, and law. They are trying to build a civilization on the edge of the habitable world. The sun never sets. It is the midnight sun. The arguments go on all night. You wrap your cloak around you. You are part of the great assembly. Your voice counts. Let's leave the political drama of the Althing and head to a place that is darker, deeper, and smells of fermentation. The brewery. Vikings drink. A lot. But not just for fun. In a world where water can kill you, ale is survival. You are a brew wife. Brewing is women's work. The cauldron is your domain. You're making ale for the winter. You soak the barley until it sprouts, malting. You dry it over a fire. You crush it. You boil it with water and herbs. Bog myrtle, yarrow, juniper. Hops haven't arrived yet. You add the magic stick. This is a wooden stirring stick passed down from mother to daughter. It is covered in yeast from previous batches. When you stir the wort, it starts to bubble. To you, it is magic. To us, it is microbiology. You taste the brew. It is bitter, earthy, and strong. It will keep the men happy during the long nights. It will be offered to the gods. You realize that the brewery is the pharmacy of the Viking world. Ale is a painkiller, a disinfectant, and a source of calories. You pour a horn for yourself. It warms you. You are the keeper of the liquid courage. Let's leave the brewery and step into the quiet concentration of the boneworker's bench. You are making a comb, not from plastic, but from antler, red deer or reindeer. It is a tough material, harder than wood but softer than stone. You saw the antler into plates. You file them smooth. You use a fine saw to cut the teeth. Each tooth must be perfect. If one breaks, the comb is useless. You rivet the plates together with iron pins. You carve a design on the handle, a wolf, or a geometric pattern. This isn't just a toiletry item. A comb is a personal treasure. Vikings are vain. They carry their combs everywhere. If you die, your comb is buried with you. You also make ice skates from horse leg bones. You flatten the bottom, drill holes for leather straps. Children will use them to glide across frozen lakes. You make needles from pig fibulas. You make dice from sheep knuckles. You realize that in a world without factories, everything comes from nature. The animal that fed you also provides the tools to groom yourself and the games to entertain yourself. Nothing is wasted. You blow the bone dust off your workbench. It settles like snow. You pick up the finished comb. It is smooth, white, and beautiful. It is a small piece of civilization in a wild world. Let's leave the bone workshop and travel even further north. leaving the familiar world of the Viking farmsteads behind. We are entering the high tundra, the land of the midnight sun and the polar night. We are visiting the Sami. The Vikings call them Finnar. They are the reindeer herders, the hunters, and the masters of the high north. You are here to trade. You approach their camp on skis. The snow here is deep and powdery. You see the lavu, their tents. They look like teepees, but they are lower, squatter, built to withstand winds that would strip the roof off a longhouse. They are covered in reindeer hides, sewn together with sinew. You enter the tent. The warmth is immediate and shocking. A fire burns in the centre. The floor is covered in a thick layer of birch twigs, and over that piles of soft reindeer furs. It is a nest. The smell is intense. Wood smoke, cured leather, and the musky sweet scent of reindeer. You are here to buy furs. The Sami have the best furs in the world: sable, marten, squirrel, and white Arctic fox. These are the luxury goods that kings in Europe crave. You offer them iron knives and needles, like the ones you just saw being made. Iron is precious here. You sit on the furs. You're offered a bowl of reindeer milk. It is rich, thick like cream, and very sweet. It warms you instantly. Outside you hear a strange clicking sound. It sounds like thousands of castanets. It is the herd. Reindeer tendons click when they walk. It is the sound of wealth moving. You watch the Noidi, the shaman. He's holding a drum. It is oval, covered in reindeer skin, and painted with red alder juice. The symbols show the sun, the herds, and the gods. He beats it with a hammer made of antler. Thumb, thumb, thumb. The Vikings fear the Sami magic. They believe the Sami can control the wind, selling wind knots to sailors. They believe they can shapeshift. But sitting here, in the warmth of the lavu, you don't feel fear. You feel respect. These people survive in a place where even Vikings struggle. They move with the land, not against it. You make your trade. You pack the furs onto your sled. You step back out into the blue twilight. The auroras swirling above the herd. You're standing on the roof of the world. Let's leave the reindeer herds and the shamans and travel to a place that feels like the very edge of reality. The colony of Greenland. You are a settler. You followed Eric the Red here because he promised green land. It was the greatest marketing lie in history. It is mostly ice, rock, and wind. But there are two fjords where grass grows. The eastern settlement and the western settlement. You build your farm here. Life is precarious. You raise sheep and goats. Cows are hard to keep alive. They spend most of the year in the byre, too weak to walk. You hunt seals on the pack ice. You trade walrus ivory, white gold, with Europe. A single tusk can pay your taxes for a year. The winters are brutal. Sometimes the sea ice doesn't melt in summer. The ships from Norway can't get through. You're cut off from the world. No iron, no grain, no timber. You see the Inuit, the Skraelings. They arrive in kayaks, sewing their clothes with waterproof stitching you can't replicate. They hunt whales. You trade with them, but you are wary. You are a European farmer trying to force the land to be Europe. They are hunters who move with the ice. You build a church. It is tiny, made of stone and turf. It is the furthest outpost of Christianity. The Pope knows you exist. He sends bishops. But one year, a bishop dies. No ship comes to replace him. You bury your dead without a priest. You realize that you are living on the very edge of survival. If the climate cools even a little, the little ice age, the grass will fail. The cows will die. The ships will stop coming. And eventually they do. The colony vanishes. Did they starve? Did they leave? Did they die fighting? No one knows. But for now, you are here. You light a fire of driftwood and seal blubber. You look out at the iceberg-filled fjord. You're stubborn. You're a Greenlander. Let's leave the desolate shores of Greenland and head south, thousands of miles south, to a place where Vikings are not farmers, but elite warriors for hire, the Varangian Guard barracks in Constantinople. We visited the city briefly before, but let's look closer at the daily life of these mercenaries. You are a Varangian. You are huge, bearded, and carry a weapon no one else can lift, the Dane axe. It is a two-handed monster capable of cleaving a horse's head. You live in luxury. The emperor pays you in gold. You have servants. You bathe in marble bathhouses. You drink wine mixed with pine resin, retsina. But you're also an outsider. The Greeks call you axe-bearing barbarians. They admire your strength but mock your table manners. Your job is simple: protect the emperor. From whom? Everyone. His generals, his family, the mob. The emperor trusts you because you have no political ambition. You just want the gold. You're the only people in the city who aren't trying to steal the throne. You stand guard in the great palace. The walls are covered in mosaics. Mechanical lions roar at the throne. It is a world of intrigue and poison. You see a courtier whisper to a general. You grip your axe. If they move wrong, you strike. You're loyal to the death or until the contract expires. When the emperor dies, you have the right to Pelutesvarf, the palace pillage. You can take whatever you can carry. It is the ultimate severance package. You're a Viking in a toga, a wolf in a gilded cage, and you love it. Let's leave the marble halls of Miklagard and return to the turf-roofed longhouse one last time, but not during the day. It is night, the deep, heavy, eternal night of the northern winter. The fire in the central hearth has burned down to a bed of glowing red coals. The room is in shadow. The air is still, but it is alive with the breathing of your family, your thralls, and your animals behind the partition. But before you sleep, let's think about the invisible threads that hold this Viking world together. It isn't just axes and longships. It is the concept of hamingja, luck, or perhaps destiny. To you, luck isn't random, it is a force. It runs in families. If your father was lucky, you might inherit it. If you act honourably, you increase it. If you act shamefully, you lose it. A man without hamingja is a dead man walking. It is the concept of frith, peace and social order. Within the kinship group, frith must be maintained. You don't fight your brother. You don't steal from your neighbour. If you break frith, you unravel the fabric of society. You become an outcast. It is the belief in the Norns, the three sisters who sit at the well beneath the world tree. They spin the thread of your life. They measure it. They cut it. You think about the people you have met on this journey, the rower fighting the storm, the blacksmith forging the future, the weaver creating warmth, the seeress seeing the unseen. They are all struggling against the same enemies, the cold, the hunger, the darkness. But they are also embracing it. They don't hide from the winter. They ski across it. They don't fear the ocean. They ride it. You are living in a culture that doesn't believe in comfort, but believes passionately in vitality, in action, in leaving a mark on the world, whether it's a rune on a stone or a story told by the fire. You turn over on your bench. The furs are soft. The smell of wood smoke is home. You're tired, but you're not defeated. You're ready for whatever the Norns have spun for you. You listen to the wind outside. It is still trying to get in. But the turf roof holds. The walls hold. You're safe. The embers in the central hearth have finally faded to a dull, pulsing red. The warmth is retreating, replaced by the encroaching chill of the Nordic night. The longhouse is silent, save for the rhythmic breathing of the household and the occasional shift of a cow in the byre. The Viking world has stopped moving. The axe is hung, the oar is stowed, the loom is still. The great, relentless struggle for survival has paused, waiting for the pale dawn to restart the cycle. But you don't have to wait for the dawn. You don't have to wake up to the freezing floor, the smoky air, or the uncertainty of the sea, because your time here is done. As the darkness deepens, the heavy timber beams of the roof begin to dissolve. The smell of wood smoke, wet wool, and dried fish fades away, replaced by the scent of clean air. The fur-covered bench beneath you softens, smoothing out into something clean and supportive. You're no longer in the 9th century. You're no longer fighting the North Sea. You're back in your own bed. The air is clear. The temperature is controlled. There are no drafts, no trolls in the forest, no raiders on the horizon. You are safe in the modern world, protected by centuries of progress that you didn't have to fight for, but you get to enjoy. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress. Your arms, tired from rowing, are heavy and relaxed. Your hands, unclenched from holding the axe or the oar, are open and still. The tension of the Viking day has left your shoulders. You don't have to worry about the harvest. You don't have to fear the winter. You don't have to pray for a safe voyage. You just have to sleep. The past is a brutal, beautiful, terrifying place to visit. It is a testament to how much the human body and spirit can endure. You have witnessed the storm and the silence. You have seen how hard it was just to stay alive. But now, You have the greatest luxury of all: safety. Let the darkness wrap around you, not as a threat, but as a blanket. Let the quiet fill your mind. The story is over. The struggle is finished. Sleep well. The past will always be there, waiting in the sagas and the runestones. But tonight, the night belongs to you. Good night. Hey guys, welcome back to the north. We've survived the freezing open ocean, dragged ships through Russian forests, and endured the long, smoky darkness of the winter longhouse. But now, the season is turning. The ice is cracking, the sun is lingering a little longer, and the world is transforming from a white wasteland into something brown, wet, and incredibly messy. Tonight we explore the Viking Spring, a time of mud, sweat, and the desperate race to grow food before the dark returns. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, would you rather face a berserker in battle, or spend a month weeding a Viking barley field? The answer might surprise you. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, pull the blanket up, the damp air is setting in, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 950 AD. The good news? You're alive. The bad news? The snow is melting and your entire world has turned into mud. You wake up to the sound of dripping, drip, drip, drip. It is the soundtrack of the spring thaw, the icicles hanging from the thatched roof are melting. The snowdrifts piled against the walls are turning into slush. The frozen ground, which has been hard as iron for 5 months, is softening into a quagmire. You roll out of your furs. The air inside the longhouse feels different. It isn't the biting, dry cold of January. It is a damp, heavy chill that clings to your skin like a wet sheet. The smell of the house has changed too. As the earth warms up, the smells that were frozen, the manure in the byre, the compost heap outside, the damp wool are waking up. It is an earthy, pungent scent of decomposition and rebirth. You step outside. Your boots sink 2 inches into the mud. It sucks at your heels with a squelching sound. Squelch, squelch. This is the reality of the Viking Spring. Before the flowers bloom, the world rots. You look at the fields. They are brown and grey. The winter wheat you planted last autumn is just a faint green fuzz pushing through the mud. Your survival depends on that fuzz. If a late frost hits now, you starve. It is time to work. The spring work, Vinu, begins. You head to the barn. The cows are restless. They have been cooped up for months. They are thin, their ribs showing through their shaggy winter coats. You open the doors. They blink in the light. They stumble out into the mud, mooing weakly. You have to guide them to the first patches of grass. Sometimes they are so weak from the winter diet of dry hay that you have to physically lift them. This is called lifting the cow. It is a yearly ritual of desperation. Then you turn to the fields. You grab the ard, the plough. It isn't a modern plough with wheels and a mouldboard that turns the soil over. It is basically a large, iron-tipped wooden hook that you drag through the earth. It doesn't turn the soil. It just scratches a groove in it. You harness the ox. He is grumpy. You are grumpy. You start to plough. The mud is heavy. It clings to the ploughshare. Every 10 steps you have to stop and scrape it off. Your arms ache. Your boots are heavy with clay. The wind blows across the fjord. It is still cold enough to numb your ears, but you're sweating under your wool tunic. This is the paradox of spring. Freezing wind and sweating labour. You are preparing the ground for barley. Barley is life. It makes bread, flatbread, and more importantly, it makes ale. Without barley, there is no beer. Without beer, life is intolerable. You work until the sun goes down. The sky turns a pale violet. The birds are singing, a sound you haven't heard in months. It feels like a promise. You trudge back to the longhouse. You're covered in mud. Your hands are raw. But you feel a different kind of tiredness than the winter lethargy. This is productive tiredness. The world is waking up and you are waking up with it. You sit by the fire. You eat the last of the winter's dried meat. It is tough and salty. But you know that soon there will be fresh milk, fresh greens, and fresh fish. You close your eyes. The sound of the dripping meltwater is no longer annoying. It is the ticking clock of the harvest. The cycle has begun again. Let's leave the muddy fields and head to the one place where spring means something entirely different. the harbour. For the farmer, spring is ploughing. For the sailor, spring is freedom. The ice in the fjord has broken, the sea is open, you're down at the ship shed. The long ship has been sitting on rollers all winter, covered in tarpaulins. It smells of old pine tar and damp wood. Your job is to wake the dragon. You strip off the covers. The wood is grey and dry, it needs to be fed. You heat up a mixture of tar, sheep fat and charcoal. It is a thick black sludge. You paint it onto the hull. The smell is pungent and chemical, burning your nostrils. It is the perfume of the Viking Age. You check the rivets. Rust is the enemy. You replace the weak ones. Clang, clang. The sound of the hammer echoes across the water. You bring out the sail. It has been stored in a chest to keep the mice away. You unfurl it. It is stiff. You rub it with horse fat to make it supple again. The crew gathers. These are the same men you spent the winter drinking with, arguing with, and wrestling with. Now you're a unit again. You launch the ship. It slides down the greased logs. Rumble, splash. It hits the water. It bobs, alive. You load the supplies. Barrels of water, sacks of dried fish, casks of ale, weapons. The Jarl arrives. He's wearing his best cloak pinned with a gold brooch. He looks at the ship. He looks at the sky. The wind is from the north, he says. We sail for Francia. Francia, the land of the Franks. Rich, fat and full of monasteries. You feel a surge of excitement. The farm work is important, but this is adventure. This is where you earn the silver that buys the farm. You climb aboard. You take your seat at the oar. The wood is cold under your hand. You push off. The shore recedes. The mountains shrink. You are leaving. The mud behind. You're entering the blue world. Let's leave the longship cutting through the waves and return to the land, but not to the farm. We're going to the bustling, noisy and slightly dangerous heart of the Viking economy, the slave market in Dublin. Dublin, Blackpool, is a Viking city. It isn't a quaint Irish village. It is a fortress of trade and exploitation. You walk through the streets. They are paved with wooden planks to keep you out of the mud. The houses are packed tight, wattle and daub walls leaning in. The air smells of smoke, roasting meat, and thousands of people. You reach the market square. It is crowded. You hear Norse, Irish, English, and Arabic. In the centre there is a raised platform. Standing on it are the thralls, slaves. They come from everywhere. A monk from Scotland, still wearing his tattered robe. A girl from a Slavic village with braids in her hair. A noblewoman from Francia who looks at the ground, refusing to cry. This is the dark engine of the Viking world. The ships don't just carry silver, they carry people. You are a buyer. You need a thrall for your farm. The harvest is coming, and you need muscle. You examine a man. He is strong, his hands calloused. He looks back at you with defiance. That is dangerous. A defiant thrall might burn your barn or kill you in your sleep. You want someone strong but broken. You haggle with the slaver. He is a scarred man who speaks 4 languages badly. You pay him in silver arm rings. He weighs the silver on a scale. Good weight, he grunts. You take the thrall. You put an iron collar around his neck. It is a symbol of ownership. You walk him back to your ship. You feel a strange mix of power and unease. You own a human being. It is normal, it is legal, it is necessary, but it is also heavy. The thrall stumbles. You pull the chain. Walk, you say. He walks. You realize that the line between you and him is very thin. One bad raid, one lost battle, and you could be the one on the platform. Let's leave the moral complexity of the slave market and head to a place of pure, unadulterated craftsmanship, the glass bead maker's hearth in Reeb. We touched on beads in Chapter 1, but let's look at the chemistry. You're a master glassworker. You're sitting in front of a small clay furnace. It is glowing orange. The heat is intense, singing the hair on your arms. You have imported glass tesserae, little squares of coloured glass from Roman mosaics, dug up and sold by traders. You also have raw glass ingots from the Middle East. You melt a blue rod. It turns into a glowing globule of honey. You wind it around a metal mandrel coated in clay slip, so the glass doesn't stick. You add dots, white glass, red glass. You press them into the hot blue bead. They melt flat. You twist the mandrel. The dots swirl. You are painting with fire. These beads are currency. A blue bead might buy a chicken, a complex millefiori, 1,000. Flowers. Bead might buy a goat. You make a necklace. 50 beads. It is heavy, colourful, and makes a satisfying clack-clack sound when worn. A woman buys it. She wears an apron dress with 2 large oval brooches. She hangs the beads between them. It is a splash of colour against the drab wool. You realise that Vikings aren't just grim warriors in grey landscapes. They love colour. They love beauty. They will travel thousands of miles for a piece of blue glass. You wipe the sweat from your forehead. Your eyes hurt from the glare of the fire. But you've created something permanent. Let's leave the heat of the glass furnace and head to a place that smells of damp wool, lanolin, and endless patience. The weaver's hut. We visited the loom briefly before, but let's look at the sheer scale of the task. You are a woman. Your name is Astrid. You are responsible for clothing your entire family, husband, 5 children, 3 thralls, and making the sails for the ship. You start with the sheep. You shear them with iron shears. The wool is greasy and dirty. You wash it in urine. Yes, it's the universal cleaner. You card it with teasel heads, spiky plant pods, to align the fibres. Then you spin. You have a drop spindle, a wooden stick with a stone weight, whirl at the bottom. You spin while walking, while cooking, while watching the children. Your hands are never still. It takes 10,000 metres of thread to make one tunic. Then the loom, the warp-weighted loom. It leans against the wall. You stand up to weave. You walk back and forth all day. Step. Throw shuttle. Beat. Step. You're making a sail. It is a massive square of wool, 100 square metres. It has to be tight enough to hold the wind, but flexible enough not to tear. You weave it in strips and sew them together. Then you waterproof it. You rub a mixture of horse fat, tar and ochre into the fabric. It turns red and heavy. It smells of animals and earth. This sail will power the ship to England. Will catch the wind that brings the silver home. You realise that the Viking Age isn't just powered by muscle. It is powered by wool. Without the women weaving, the men are stuck on the shore. Your back aches. Your fingers are calloused. But you look at the red sail drying in the sun. It is your masterpiece. Let's leave the loom and head to a place of silence, mist, and deep time, the stone circle. It isn't a Viking construction. It was built thousands of years ago by people whose names are lost, but the Vikings use it. You are at a local assembly, but not for law, for ritual. There is a large stone in the centre, the Hauger, the altar. It is stained dark with old blood. You bring a horse, a stallion. It is a sacrifice. The Gothi, priest, steps forward. He wears a ring on his arm, the oath ring. He kills the horse. He catches the blood in a bowl, the hlautbolli. He takes a twig, the hlautin, and sprinkles the blood on the stones on the walls of the temple, if there is one, and on the people. To Odin for victory, to Freya for peace. You feel the droplets hit your face. They are warm. It is a visceral connection to the gods. Then, the feast. The horse is cooked. Everyone eats. Eating the horse is a communion. You are taking the strength of the offering into yourself. Later, when Christianity arrives, eating horse meat will be the first thing banned. It is the ultimate pagan act. You stand in the stone circle. The mist swirls around the standing stones. They look like giants frozen in time. You realise that your religion isn't about faith. It's about maintaining a contract with the universe. You give so you can receive. The fire dies down. The stones are cold. You walk home under the stars, your belly full of sacred meat. Let's leave the sacred circle and head to a place of noise, confusion, and legal complexity. The duel. Not a battlefield brawl, but a holmgang, island going. A legal duel fought on a small island or a marked-out cloak. You are a second. You are holding the shield for your friend Thorstein. He has been challenged by a man named Skarfadin over a land dispute. The rules are strict. Each man has 3 shields. If all 3 break, he must fight without one. The fight ends when blood falls on the cloak. You watch them. They circle. They are nervous. This isn't war, it is a ritual. Crash. Thorstein's axe hits Skarfadin's shield. Wood splinters fly. The shield holds. Thwack. Skarfadin strikes back. Thorstein blocks. His shield splits. One down. The crowd watches in silence. They are betting, but quietly. This is serious business. Thorstein's second shield breaks, then his third. He is now exposed. Skarfadin grins. He swings high. Thorstein ducks and strikes low. The axe bites into Skarphedin's leg. Blood sprays onto the cloak. "Stop!" the judge shouts. The duel is over. Thorstein wins. Skarphedin is injured but alive. He must pay a fine to save his life. You realize that Holmgang's a way to stop endless feuds. It focuses the violence into a single, regulated event. It is brutal, but it keeps the peace. You help Thorstein off the field. He is shaking. You hand him a horn of ale. He drinks it in one gulp. You're glad it wasn't you. Let's leave the bloody field of the duel and head to a place that is surprisingly quiet, meticulous, and filled with the smell of drying herbs, the Völva's garden. The Völva, Cirrus, is not just a prophet, she is a healer, and her garden is her pharmacy. You walk through the rows. It is summer, the plants are high. Angelica, the root of the Holy Ghost. It cures plague, allegedly, and flavours mead. Yarrow, soldier's woundwort. It stops bleeding. You chew it into a poultice and slap it on a cut. Henbane, a powerful sedative and hallucinogen, used for surgery or for seeing the spirits. Onion and garlic, antibiotics. A leech book remedy for eye infection involves garlic, onion, wine, and ox gall, brewed in a brass pot. Modern science tested this. It actually kills Marseille bacteria. You are the Völva's apprentice. You are learning the leechcraft. A man comes to the gate. He has a festering wound on his leg. It smells sweet and rotten. Gangrene. The Völva looks at it. She doesn't flinch. She cleans it with boiled water and honey. Honey is antibacterial. She packs it with moss, which absorbs fluids. She chants a spell. Bone to bone, blood to blood, limb to limb, so be it mended. Is it the honey or the spell that heals him? To her there is no difference. Medicine and magic are the same thing. You grind herbs in a stone mortar. The smell is green and sharp. You are learning the secrets of the earth. You realize that while the men fight with iron, the women fight with green things, and often the green things win. Let's leave the garden and step into the quiet, smoky interior of the blacksmith's forge again. But this time, we aren't making weapons. We are making something far more mystical, the amulet. You are a smith, but you're also a magician of sorts. A woman has come to you. She wants a Thor's hammer, Mjolnir pendant for her son, who is going on his first raid. You take a small piece of silver, you melt it, you pour it into a soapstone mould. As it cools, you stamp it with tiny triangles and circles. You whisper a charm over it. Thor protect, Thor strike. You thread it onto a leather cord. It is heavy, cool to the touch. It is a symbol of the god who protects mankind from giants. But then a Christian missionary walks in. He wants a cross. You don't blink. You have a mould that has a hammer on one side and a cross on the other. You pour the silver. You make the cross. Jesus protect, you say, taking his silver. You realize that the gods are changing. Christ is arriving in the north, but for now you serve both. You are a pragmatist. Silver is silver, and protection is protection. You hand the woman the hammer. She clasps it tight. You hand the priest the cross. He blesses you. You go back to the fire. The old gods and the new god meet in the sparks of your forge. Let's leave the ambiguous theology of the smithy and head to a place where there is no ambiguity, only ice and silence. The glacier. You are hunting, but not for deer. You're hunting for Jotun, giants. Well, not literally. You're hunting for what the giants represent, the raw power of winter. You're on the edge of the habitable world, high in the mountains of Norway. You're wearing skis. You move silently across the white expanse. The glacier is a river of ice, blue and cracked. It groans, crack, boom. It sounds like the earth is breaking. You see a crevasse. It is deep, dark blue, going down into the heart of the mountain. You toss a stone in. You never hear it hit the bottom. You believe that this is where the frost giants live, Niflheim, the world of mist and cold. You are here to collect glacier ice, to keep the fish, fresh. No, for a ritual. You chip off a piece of the purest, oldest ice. It is thousands of years old. You carry it back in a leather bag insulated with wool. Back at the farm, you melt it. This is primeval water. You use it to brew a special batch of ale for Yule. You believe it contains the strength of the mountains. You drink the ale. It is cold and crisp. You feel the power of the glacier entering your blood. You realize that for the Vikings, the landscape isn't just scenery. It is a living, breathing entity. And sometimes you drink it. Let's leave the frozen heights of the glacier and descend into the fiery, rhythmic heart of a different kind of magic. The iron smelter. You're a smith, but not the village blacksmith who shoes horses. You're a weaponsmith. You're making the legendary Ulfbert's sword. You have a crucible of crucible steel, high-carbon steel imported from Persia via the Volga trade route. It is technology centuries ahead of Europe. You heat the metal until it is white-hot. You fold it, you hammer it, you fold it again. You're aligning the crystalline structure of the steel. You inlay the name pluses VLFBI plead T into the blade with twisted iron wire. It is a brand name, a guarantee of quality. This sword will not bend in battle. It will cut through chainmail like butter. It is worth a king's ransom. You quench it. The steam hisses like a snake. You hold it up. It balances perfectly. It sings when you tap it. You realize that the Viking Age isn't just about brute force. It is about global trade networks connecting Afghan steel to Scandinavian forges. It is about high technology. You wrap the sword in oiled cloth. It is ready for war. Let's leave the forge and return to the hearth one last time. But it isn't winter anymore, it is Ragnarok. Not the end of the world, but the end of the Viking Age. The year is 1066. The Battle of Stamford Bridge. You are a warrior. You're standing on a bridge in England. You're facing the entire English army alone. You hold your Dane axe. You are huge. You are the last berserker. They charge you. You swing, hack, slash. Men fall. The bridge is slick with blood. They cannot pass. You hold them for an hour. 40 men die by your hand. You are a legend, a giant, a relic of an age that is passing. But then a soldier floats under the bridge in a barrel. He thrusts a spear up through the planks. It hits you. You fall. The bridge is lost. The battle is lost. The Viking Age ends not with a bang, but with a cheap trick. But the story doesn't end. You wake up. The fire is low. The longhouse is silent. You are back in your own time. The noise of the battle fades. The smell of blood is gone. You're safe in your bed. The modern world surrounds you. You realize that the Vikings are gone, but their spirit remains. In the names of the days, Wednesday sust Woden's day, Thursday sast Thor's day. In the language, window, knife, egg, husband. In the DNA of millions of people. They were brutal, they were raiders, but they were also explorers, traders, poets, and survivors. You close your eyes. The northern lights fade. The dragon ship sails over the edge of the world. Sleep well. The gods are watching. Let's leave the battlefield of Stamford Bridge and retreat to the quiet, mystical isolation of the Faroe Islands. Here, the end of the Viking Age doesn't come with a roar, but with a whisper. You are a sheep farmer. The islands are green, steep, and surrounded by a restless ocean. There are no trees here, only grass and wind. You live in a stone house with a turf roof. It is dug into the hillside to escape the storms. Inside, it is dark and smoky but warm. Your life is defined by wool. Wool is gold. You raise sheep that are small, tough, and half wild. You pluck their wool by hand, rueing, rather than shearing it, because it is softer. You're knitting. Yes, knitting. The Vikings didn't knit, they used nailer binding, needle binding, but you are, living in the transition period. The new technique has arrived. You're making a sweater that is waterproof because the wool is full of lanolin. You walk to the cliffs. You are hunting puffins. You climb down a rope made of horsehair, suspended hundreds of feet above the crashing waves. You catch the birds with a net. It is terrifying work, but the meat is rich and the feathers make soft bedding. You see a ship on the horizon. It has a cross on the sail. Christianity is coming. The old gods are fading. You still leave milk for the Huldu folk, hidden people, in the rocks. But you also go to Mass on Sunday. You are a survivor of the transition. The raids are over. The trading remains. You're no longer a Viking. You're a Pharaoh's. You sit on the cliff edge. The wind tears at your clothes. You look out at the endless grey sea. The world is changing, but the rhythm of the sheep, the grass, and the wind remains the same. Let's leave the windy cliffs of the Faroes and travel south, to a place where Viking blood mixed with French wine, Normandy. You are a Norman. Your grandfather was a Viking raider named Rollo. He was so big no horse could carry him, so he walked. Rollo the Walker. The French king gave him this land to stop him from burning Paris. It worked. Sort of. You live in a stone castle, not a wooden longhouse. You speak French. But you still name your sons Richard and William. You drink wine, not mead. You're a knight. You wear chainmail, a hauberk. It is heavy, thousands of riveted iron rings. You ride a massive warhorse, a destrier. You fight with a lance and a kite shield. You are preparing for an invasion, not a raid, a conquest. Duke William wants England. You watch the ships being built. They still look like Viking longships. Clinker-built, shallow draft, but they are wider, designed to carry horses. You realise that the Viking spirit hasn't died. It has just evolved. It has put on armour, learned French, and organised itself into a feudal army. You cross the Channel. The Battle of Hastings awaits. You charge up the hill at Senlac. Thud, thud, thud. The Saxon shield wall breaks. The English king falls. You have conquered a kingdom. You build a castle. The Tower of London. You realise that the Vikings didn't disappear. They became the Normans. And through the Normans they shaped the medieval world. You sit in your new hall in England. It is cold, but the fire is bright. You drink wine from a silver goblet. You have traded the axe for the crown. Let's leave the newly conquered fields of England and travel to a place where the Viking spirit lingered longest, stubborn and fierce, the Western Isles of Scotland. You're a Galgael, a foreign Gael. You're the child of Viking fathers and Celtic mothers. You speak Gaelic and Norse. You fight with a broadsword and a round shield. You're a lord of the Isles. You rule a sea kingdom. Your castle is Dunvegan, built on a rock surrounded by water. You are sailing a Berlin, a descendant of the longship. It has a rudder, a single square sail, and banks of oars. It is fast and deadly. You are raiding not for gold, but for cattle. The Creech, the cattle raid, is a sport, a rite of passage, and an economic necessity. You land on a rival island. You drive the cows onto your ship, the bulls bellow, the men shout. It is chaos. But you also have a bard, a man who sings your genealogy back to Odin and to the High Kings of Ireland. He recites poetry while you row. You realise that here, on the edge of the Atlantic, the Viking Age didn't end in 1066. It faded slowly over centuries, merging with the Celtic twilight. You steer your ship through the mist. The Hebrides rise like ghosts from the sea. You are the last of the Sea Kings. Let's leave the misty isles of Scotland and travel to the most mysterious Viking discovery of all, the Vinland map, or at least the world it represents. You are a scribe in 15th century Europe. The Viking Age is long over, but you are copying a map. It shows Europe, Africa, Asia, and an island in the far west called Vinlanda Insula. You trace the coastline. It looks like Newfoundland. You wonder who saw this land. Was it Leif Erikson? Was it Thorfinn Karlsefni? You realise that the Vikings expanded the known world by thousands of miles. They proved the ocean wasn't a barrier, but a highway. But their discovery was lost. The colony failed. The map was forgotten in a library. Until now. You look at the ink. It is brown and faded. But the line of the coast is clear. It is a testament to the courage of men who sailed into the unknown in open boats. You close the book. The secret sleeps for another 500 years. Let's leave the dusty library and the fading maps and step into the quiet, snow-covered churchyard of a small Norwegian village in the 12th century. The Viking Age is officially over, but its architecture remains in a stunning, almost defiant form. The Stave Church. You're standing before the Borgund Stave Church. It doesn't look like a stone cathedral. It looks like a dragon scaling towards heaven. It is built entirely of wood, pine logs cured with tar until they are black and weather-resistant. The roof is tiered, layer upon layer of shingles that resemble dragon scales, and on the gables, instead of crosses, there are dragon heads. The same dragon heads that once graced the prows of longships. You enter. It is dark inside. The air smells of resin and old prayer. The pillars are massive tree trunks. The carvings on the portals show scenes from the sagas, Sigurd the Dragon Slayer, intertwined with Christian crosses. You realise that the Vikings didn't just stop being Vikings. They translated their culture. The longship became the church. The dragon became the guardian of the sanctuary. The wind howls outside, rattling the wooden shingles, but inside it is still. The craftsmanship that built ships to cross the Atlantic now builds a house for God. You touch the tarred wood. It is sticky, cold, and eternal. It is a bridge between the old world and the new. Let's leave the dragon-scaled church and enter the most personal space of all, the burial chamber of the Oseberg ship. It is 834 AD. Two women are being buried. One is older, perhaps a queen or a high priestess. The other is younger. They are placed in a burial chamber built on the deck of a magnificent longship. The ship is filled with everything they might need in the afterlife. Not just gold, but tools. You see a loom, a bucket of apples, still preserved, a sleigh with intricately carved animal heads, a wagon, beds with down comforters. These women are not going to a passive heaven. They're going to a place where they will work, travel and rule. The ship is buried under a massive mound of blue clay and peat. The clay seals it, preserving the wood, the cloth, and the mystery for over 1,000 years. You stand in the darkness of the chamber before it is sealed. The air smells of herbs and death. You wonder who they were. Were they loved? Were they feared? You realize that Viking women were powerful. They were buried with the same honors as the greatest chieftains. They held the keys to the future. The mound is closed. The women sleep in their wooden ship sailing through the earth. Let's leave the silence of the burial mound and head to the most chaotic, colourful and surprising place in the Viking world, the Yule celebration. It is midwinter. The sun has been gone for days. But the longhouse is ablaze with light. You're not celebrating Christmas. Not yet. You're celebrating Yule, the turning of the year, the return of the sun. The centrepiece is the Yule boar, a pig sacrificed to Freya. You swear oaths on its bristles. I vow to be a better man. I vow to sail to the west. You burn the Yule log. It is a massive oak trunk that must burn for 12 days. If it goes out, bad luck will follow. You keep the ashes. They protect against lightning. You see mummers, men dressed in animal skins and masks, running through the village, scaring away evil spirits. They are terrifying and hilarious. You drink wassail, a hot spiced ale. The word comes from Vesheil, be healthy. You pass the bowl. You drink to the gods, to the ancestors, to the future. You realise that many of our modern Christmas traditions, the ham, the log, the carolling, the mistletoe, started here, in the dark, cold north, as a desperate, joyous defiance against the winter. You raise your horn. The firelight reflects in your eyes. Jule, you shout. The darkness retreats. Let's leave the festive warmth of the Yule celebration and head back into the forest, to a place that is sticky, dark and smells like the inside of a chimney, the tar kiln. You might think Vikings conquer the world with iron and wood. True, but without this sticky black substance, their ships would rot and sink within a year. Tar is the blood of the Viking Age. You are a tar burner. You work in the pine forests of Sweden or Norway. You look for dead pine trees, specifically the roots. You pull them out of the ground. They are heavy with resin. You dig a funnel-shaped pit in a sloping hillside. You line the bottom with birch bark. You stack the pine roots tightly inside, covering them with turf and charcoal to keep the air out. Then you light the fire. It isn't a bonfire. It is a smother burn. You want heat, not flames. The heat forces the resin out of the wood. It trickles down through the stack, turning into thick black liquid. It flows out of a hole at the bottom of the pit into a wooden trough. The smell is intense. It clears your sinuses instantly. It is sharp, chemical and earthy. It sticks to your skin, your hair, your clothes. You are permanently waterproofed. You collect the tar in barrels. It is hot and viscous. You have to watch the kiln day and night. If it gets too hot, the tar burns. If it gets too cool, it stops flowing. This tar will be painted onto the hulls of longships. It seals the wood against the salt water. It prevents shipworms from eating the keel. It gives the Viking ships their characteristic black colour. You realise that you are the mechanic of the fleet. The warriors get the glory, but you keep them afloat. You dip your finger in the cooling tar. It is tacky. It stains your skin. It is the colour of the deep ocean at night. You roll a barrel down to the river. It will travel to the coast, then to England, then maybe to the Mediterranean. A piece of your forest will sail the world. Let's leave the smoky forest and travel to a place of noise, confusion, and surprising hygiene. The Viking bathhouse. Yes, another one, but this time it's urban. We saw the sauna, but in a big trading town like Jorvik, they have public steam baths. It is Saturday, Lugadgur. The whole town is here. You enter. It is crowded. The air is thick, with steam and the smell of soap. Yes, Vikings have soap. It is made from animal fat and lye, and it is surprisingly effective. Some of it is scented with birch leaves. You see men washing each other's hair. Grooming is a social activity. You see women scrubbing children. You see traders from different lands sitting naked on the benches, discussing the price of amber. But the most important person here is the ear spoon user. You see a man cleaning his ears with a small bronze spoon. It hangs on a chain around his neck next to his Thor's hammer. He is very fastidious about it. You realise that the filthy barbarian stereotype is a lie invented by English monks, who were jealous of the Vikings' popularity with English women. The Vikings are the cleanest people in Europe. They comb their hair every day. They change their undertunics. They bleach their hair with lye soap to make it blonder and kill lice. You sit in the steam. You feel the dirt of the trade route melting away. You listen to the gossip. Did you hear about the Jarl's new sword? Did you hear about the ship that came back from Vinland? You are clean. You're informed. You are ready for the feast. Let's leave the bathhouse and enter a space that is quiet, intricate, and filled with the smell of old parchment and ink. The monastery library at Lindisfarne, before the raid. Wait, this isn't Viking. No, but it is part of their story. This is the prey. You're a monk. You're illuminating a gospel. You're painting a carpet page. An entire page filled with intricate interlacing knotwork. Animals biting their own tails. Endless woven lines. It looks Viking. You realise something profound. The Celtic art style and the Viking art style are cousins. They influence each other. When the Vikings raided, they didn't just steal gold, they stole ideas. They saw these books and took the designs back to Scandinavia, carving them into rune stones and wood. You hear a bell toll. It is a warning. You look out the window. You see the dragon ships on the horizon. You don't know it yet, but your world is about to end. But your art will survive. It will be adopted by the invaders. It will become the Ern's style. You hide the book. You pray. The Vikings are not just destroyers. They're cross-pollinators. They mix cultures. They take a Celtic knot and turn it into a Norse dragon. The door crashes open. The North has arrived. Let's leave the smoking ruins of Lindisfarne and fast forward to the very end of our journey, to a place where the old ways are dying and the new world is being born, the cathedral at Nidaros, Trondheim. The year is 1030 AD. King Olaf Haraldsson has fallen at the Battle of Stiklestad. He died trying to Christianize Norway. He failed, but in death he succeeds. Miracles happen at his grave. He becomes Saint Olaf. You are a pilgrim. You have walked hundreds of miles to see his shrine. The cathedral is built of stone, not wood. It has glass windows, not smoke holes. It smells of incense, not tar. You look at the statues. They look like saints, but they hold axes. The carvings on the pillars show dragons fighting crosses. You realise that the Viking Age didn't end with a sudden stop. It transformed. Odin became a devil. Thor became St. Olaf, the red-bearded protector. The Yule feast became Christmas. The longships stop raiding and start trading under the king's flag. The Jarls become earls. The chaos becomes a kingdom. You kneel. You pray. But in your heart you still hear the waves crashing on the prow of a dragon ship. The Viking Age is over. The medieval age has begun. Let's leave the incense-filled cathedral and the changing world of kings and saints and step back into the shadows one last time. We are going to a place of secrets, fear, and hope. The edge of the forest, beneath a twisted oak root. You are a Viking. But you're not raiding and you are not trading. You are hiding. In your hands, you hold a leather pouch. It is heavy. Inside is your life's work. Silver arm rings, a handful of Arabic dirhams, a gold brooch you took from a monastery in Francia 10 years ago. You look around. The forest is silent. The birds have stopped singing. You feel watched, though you know you're alone. Why are you here? Because the world is dangerous. A rival Jarl is marching on your farm. Or perhaps the king's tax collectors are coming, and they take too much. Or maybe you are going on a long voyage and you don't trust your neighbours. You kneel in the mud. You dig. You don't use a shovel. You use your hands and a knife. The earth is cold and wet. It smells of decay and worms. You place the pouch in the hole. You add a few other things. A glass bead for luck. A broken sword hilt. You cover it up. You pack the dirt down. You scatter leaves over the spot. You memorize the location. 3 paces north of the white stone, under the oak with the lightning scar, you whisper a curse. This silver belongs to me and my kin. Let the earth eat anyone else who touches it. You stand up. Your hands are dirty. Your heart is pounding. You have just created a horde. You intend to come back. You promise yourself you will come back next spring when the trouble has passed. But you won't. Maybe you fall in battle. Maybe the sea takes you. Maybe the plague comes. The silver sleeps in the dark. The leather pouch rots away. The coins turn black. The roots of the tree grow around them, cradling them like a secret child. They will wait there for 1,000 years. They will wait for a metal detector or a plough or an archaeologist to find them. And when they are found, they will tell your story. They will say someone stood here. Someone feared for the future. Someone tried to save something precious. You walk away from the tree. You don't look back. You have banked your legacy in the soil. Let's leave the secret of the horde beneath the oak roots and return to the longhouse one last time. But not during the day. It is night. The deep, heavy, eternal night of the northern winter. The fire in the central hearth has burned down to a bed of glowing red coals. The room is in shadow. The air is still, but it is alive with the breathing of your family, your thralls, and your animals behind the partition. But before you sleep, let's think about the invisible threads that hold this Viking world together. It isn't just axes and long ships. It is the concept of word, fate. To you, fate isn't something that happens to you. It is something that is woven. The Norns sit at the well beneath the world tree, spinning the thread of every life. They knot it. They cut it. You cannot change the length of the thread, but you can choose the pattern. It is the concept of drengskaper, a complex code of honour, courage, and manliness. It means standing firm. It means being generous to friends and ruthless to enemies. It means walking into the storm, because there is no other way home. You think about the people you have met on this journey, the rower fighting the freezing spray of the North Sea, the smith hammering iron from the bog, the weaver creating the red sail that drives the ship, the explorer standing on the edge of a new continent. They are all struggling against the same enemies, the cold, the hunger, the darkness. But they are also embracing it. They don't hide from the winter, they ski across it. They don't fear the ocean, they ride it. You are living in a culture that doesn't believe in comfort, but believes passionately in vitality, in action, in leaving a mark on the world, whether it's a rune on a stone, a hoard in the ground, or a story told by the fire. Cattle die, kinsmen die, you yourself shall die. You know this verse, but you also know the end of it. One thing I know that never dies, the reputation of each dead man. You turn over on your bench, the furs are soft and heavy, the smell of wood smoke is home. You're tired, bone-deep tired, but you're not defeated. You're ready for whatever the Norns have spun for you. You listen to the wind outside. It is still trying to get in, scratching at the turf roof, rattling the door. But the wood holds, the walls hold. You are safe. The embers in the central hearth have finally faded to a dull, pulsing red. The warmth is retreating, replaced by the encroaching chill of the Nordic night. The longhouse is silent, save for the rhythmic breathing of the household and the occasional shift of a cow in the byre. The Viking world has stopped moving. The axe is hung. The oar is stowed. The loom is still. The great, relentless struggle for survival is paused, waiting for the pale dawn to restart the cycle. But you don't have to wait for the dawn. You don't have to wake up to the freezing floor, the smoky air, or the uncertainty of the sea, because your time here is done. As the darkness deepens, the heavy timber beams of the roof begin to dissolve. The smell of wood smoke, wet wool, and dried fish fades away, replaced by the scent of clean air. The fur-covered bench beneath you softens, smoothing out into something clean and supportive. You are no longer in the 9th century. You're no longer fighting the North Sea. You're back in your own bed. The air is clear, the temperature is controlled. There are no drafts, no trolls in the forest, no raiders on the horizon. You're safe in the modern world, protected by centuries of progress that you didn't have to fight for, but you get to enjoy. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress. Your arms, tired from rowing, are heavy and relaxed. Your hands, unclenched from holding the axe or the oar, are open and still. The tension of the Viking day has left your shoulders. You don't have to worry about the harvest. You don't have to fear the winter. You don't have to pray for a safe voyage. You just have to sleep. The past is a brutal, beautiful, terrifying place to visit. It is a testament to how much the human body and spirit can endure. You have witnessed the storm and the silence. You have seen how hard it was just to stay alive. But now you have the greatest luxury of all: safety. Let the darkness wrap around you, not as a threat but as a blanket. Let the quiet fill your mind. The story is over. The struggle is finished. Sleep well. The past will always be there, waiting in the sagas and the runestones. But tonight, the night belongs to you. Good night.